Network Conference. You know, this is a bit of a dream. This group of people met together less than a year ago, and we formed what we call now the Positive Communication Network, which has a particular mission and sense of values and a sense of vision. And we'll be sharing that with you promptly. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Julien Mirivel. I'm a professor of communication at the University of Arkansas, Little Rock, where I have been now for 18 years. And I'm the founder of the Positive Communication Network. And I'm really thrilled to have you join this conference. We really didn't expect that we'd get such a great turnout, but today we now have, we had about approximately 300 people sign up. I do want to invite you to join me on this bit of a ritual that I have. When I do training and teachings, I always ask people to join me on this ritual. Imagine that we were flying together to New Delhi, India. And for most of us, we've never been there, right? So we get to the airport and we've traveled the world, we land there and we see colors we've never experienced. We smell things we've never smelled. We meet people we've never met. And we just wade through the airport. And at the end of the airport, there's somebody waiting for us to take us to the hotel. What would you say to the taxi cab driver? Our instinct might be to start with English, right? Hello, good morning. But what if you could greet that person in the native tongue? So I know here in this room, we have people from India, but if you were traveling to India, we would greet each other this way. We would greet each other with namaste. We would put our hands together like this. We would make eye contact with each other, would bow very slightly as a sign of respect, and then we would utter the words namaste. And I really love this greeting because the greeting stands for, I see the light in you. I see the part of you that has character. I see the part of you that has integrity. And I welcome this whole interaction with you. So here's what I would like for us to do very quickly. If we can remove me from the spotlight for just a second. And if you can turn on your video, you don't have to do the audio, but take a look around the people you're with today. And if we can just put our hands together like this to start this conference and slightly bow toward one another and just simply say, namaste, I see the light in you, then I think we can start this conference in some great force, great strength. So to all of you, the Positive Communication Network says, namaste,
Namaste.
See the light in you.
Namaste.
We're glad to have you with us.
Namaste.
If you could, one of the students who is helping, we have a whole group of people helping, put the slides on just for a moment. I want to share with you what the Positive Communication Network is and what we're going to do today. Is that possible? Let's see. If not, I'll do it without it. So let me tell you what the mission of the Positive Communication Network is. The mission is to foster a community dedicated to creating better social worlds for all through positive communication research, education, and practice. Our vision is to inspire communication scholars, communication educators, communication practitioners to study, explore, and celebrate positive communication practices and messages across contexts. We work together as a group to develop a sense of the values that would drive us. And so far, we think of our work as being grounded in several core values. Those include the sense of generativity. We want our work to generate good things. We are trying to be grounded in a sense of inclusiveness, where we want to welcome people from all walks of life. One of our core values is compassion, followed by collaboration, and then ultimately excellence. This group was formed in 2022, and we have people from across the United States. So if we could put the slide of the co-founders, that would be amazing. And we're each going to introduce ourselves very briefly so that you can get to know each other a little bit. So I've already introduced myself. We're going to do some dazzle introductions before we get on to the main show. In terms of the preview, we'll introduce one another. We're going to share with you who the students are very briefly who are supporting the conference today. And then we have Dr. Tom Socha, who will be giving a brief keynote, and then we will follow the rest of the day with a focus on research with some highlights of brief research presentations, a focus on teaching and pedagogy, and then a last focus on practice and conversations about how can we use research to make a positive difference in our personal and our professional lives. And then finally, we'll conclude. So my quick dazzle introduction is this. The reason why I study positive communication and I'm interested is because I want to help people create more meaningful relationships, more personal relationships. And it's something that drives me. And I hope that in that process, we find joy in the process of relating. So thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm going to let my team introduce themselves.
Hi, good morning. I'm trying to work the spotlight and also do my introduction, but I am Maggie Pitts. Hopefully, if I wave my hands around enough, you'll be able to find me on the screen. I am Associate Professor of Communication at the University of Arizona and Senior Associate Dean of the Graduate College here. I explore communication moments that dazzle, like the way that sunlight glimmers across the ocean waves and it holds our attention, inviting awareness and joy, splendor, trying to capture that and relish that moment. I study communication moments that glimmer in the same way, the way that language can be beautiful, pleasurable, meaningful, and the connection that we all create through human relating. I look at the way that we enhance those moments, try to extend and prolong those moments of late night chats or fireside chats. And this is a practice that I call communication savoring. And I'll turn it to my colleague, Tom.
Greetings from Norfolk, Virginia Beach. I'm Tom Socha. I teach here at Old Dominion University. I study positive communication, been doing it for a long time with children, families, across the lifespan, fathers, parents, culture, a number of different things. My interest in coming to this is to really that human connection and empowerment. I'm really interested in helping others to become all that they can become, enhancing their potential. But the greatest joy I have brings me to my colleagues. Working with them and working with the people in communication has just been among the greatest joys in my life, because they're warm, caring, wonderful people. I'm going to turn it over to Amy to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Amy Young, coming from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm a faculty at the Ross School of Business and also at the Center for Positive Organizations, a very similar organization to this network, where we look at positive organizations that uplift and enable people to thrive. I love positive communication because we can create these moments of positive meaning, positive emotion, and positive connection, which we call the flourishing triangle. And we know from research that the flourishing triangle promotes positive growth and mental health and physical health. And what I do is I look at the workplace and how can we integrate positive communication into the way that we are getting work done so that we can leave feeling more energized. And with that, I am turning it over to Phil.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, everyone. I'm Phil Glenn. I'm coming to you from Natick, Massachusetts. I'm a communication studies professor at Emerson College in Boston, where I teach a course in positive communication. My scholarly work, but also my work as a mediator and with nonviolent communication, has me very interested in and dazzled by the study, the teaching, and the practice of kinds of talk that promote compassion, dialogue, and deeper understanding. I'm also dazzled by laughter, humor, and play. Those moments are often multi-layered, ambiguous, complex, and they support and they provide some of life's richest experiences. So good to be with you all. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Ryan.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Fuller, and I'm an associate professor at Sacramento State University in the College of Business. My research focuses primarily on two topics, crisis communication and conflict communication. I look at both of these topics from positive perspectives such as how our communication can transform understanding about conflict, issues, processes, and relationships, and how crises create opportunities for organizations to demonstrate their values, strengthen relationships with stakeholders, and successfully move beyond the crisis with a fresh sense of purpose. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to my colleague, Kristen.
Thanks, Ryan. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Kristen Christman. I'm an instructor of communication studies at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. My background includes work in higher education, student success, community engaged scholarship, and experiential education. So I would like to say that I'm a positive communication pedagogue. That's sort of what I've decided that I am. And really, positive communication gave me a home, a place that I felt like I belonged, and I just can't let go. I have a deep interest and care for people, their stories, and doing meaningful work in communities. And I'm a bridge builder, a connector of people and ideas, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of this awe-inspiring group of academic celebrities. So thank you for being here, and I'd like to have our students say hello.
Okay, let's start with Kother.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kother Al-Badr. I'm a second-year master's student at the University of Arizona, and I am studying political and intergroup communication and super excited to learn more about positive communication.
Sean.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sean Burridge. I'm also a second-year master's student at the University of Arizona in the School of Journalism, and I kind of focus on intercultural and racial communication and how it's portrayed in the news. Glad to be here.
Amanda.
I think she's here.
I've lost her on my screen. Alice, Amanda might be on mute.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alice. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Arizona, and I've been Dr. Maggie Pitt's research assistant for the last 5 years working on communication savoring. And my work focuses on how communication can facilitate cross-cultural transition. So thank you all for being here today.
Thanks, Alice. Benjamin.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Lamb, and I am an undergraduate student in communication studies at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and I study under the supervision of Dr. Christman. Thank you.
Nung.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nong Lung. I'm a fifth-year PhD candidate about to graduate from the Colleges of Education and American Indian Studies at the University of Arizona. Thank you for having me.
Shalonda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shalonda Michelle Nelson. I am at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, first-year grad student in applied communication, and my focus is going to be in positive communication. Great to see all of you today.
That's great. All right, well, I'm going to come back to Amanda and see if Amanda has joined us. Okay, she's there. She's out there somewhere. She's behind the screen. Amanda Cooper is a doctoral candidate at the University of Arizona, studying end-of-life transitions and positive communication, things like humanizing people with Alzheimer's disease and how that enhances their well-being even across the most difficult transitions of life. So these are the students that are facilitating much of our conference today, and just really grateful for all of you, and I can't wait to see how you'll impact our world with positive communication.
And we're also grateful, as Maggie said, to have their support. They're helping us put this conference together and working behind the scenes, and so we're really grateful for their support. I'll be working in some capacity as an MC throughout the day for the conference. We really wanted to build, since this is called the Positive Communication Network Conference, we wanted to give you a chance to network with one another, to get to meet people, because we really have a wide variety of stakeholders here. We have faculty members across universities, both in the US and around the globe. We have teachers, we have practitioners, people who do consulting and coaching. And so we really have a wide variety of people coming from all walks of life. So I'm going to hand it over to Amy Young, from the University of Michigan, one of the co-founders of the Center for the Positive Communication Network, who's going to lead us through a quick activity so we get a chance to connect with one another. Amy, it's all yours.
Okay, so this is a practice that we do at the Center for Positive Organizations when we start any sort of workshop or talk. So we take a couple minutes, 5 minutes, and you get connected to a handful of people and you answer one of these questions. And they're specifically designed to really make a high quality connection. So this is a short interaction. It doesn't have to be with someone you know, but it can be a short interaction, but there's positive regard, there's high energy, mutual respect. And by designing the questions, by selecting them, we increase the likelihood that that kind of connection is going to happen. So here are the different questions that you could be responding to. The first one would be, if you have a superpower, what would it be and why? So you may choose that question. You may want to go with what's going right for you now. You may want to answer what drew you to this conference. And the last one is what has been a recent joy snack? So a snack, a little tidbit, that something that gave you joy in your day. So pick one of those questions. We're going to put you into a breakout and just share the answer to the question that you pick with the other people you see. And then we come back in about 5 minutes and you'll have the opportunity to get to know someone here at the conference in a way you probably wouldn't have if you just gave your name or where you're from. Okay, with that, let's go into our breakout rooms.
Awesome. So I think one of our wonderful students is setting up the breakout rooms, and you'll be invited to join them. And feel free to join the room, and we will be here. There'll be a timer, and we'll bring you back as soon as we've had a chance to connect with one another. Have fun.
Yeah, and let us know if you're not seeing how to join a breakout room. So for me, it just pops up on my screen and there's a little blue button that tells me which room I'm supposed to go into, but we're waiting here to welcome any other people who join. But if you look on the bottom of your Zoom screen, you might see 4 squares that says breakout rooms. You might have to just touch that button that will show you where your breakout rooms are. Or we can just move you in there.
Hi, so I had an opportunity to hit join break.
Oh, looks like she joined.
If you had not had the chance yet, so I think a few of us, I think it's just Amy and I who are staying in the main room. So Kristen, Ryan, if everybody else wants to go connect, we can handle it from here. We just need to put a timer.
I am actually still searching for my breakout room.
I keep hitting the breakout room. It's telling me that I'm joining, but then it boots me right back to the main room.
Uh-oh.
That means you get to stay with us.
Well,
Okay.
Whitney, I can put you into another room.
Okay, I think I was signed up for 15, but when I hit the button to join breakout rooms, it bounces me, but then brings me right back here.
That's strange. Yeah, that may be happening to people. Well, you can interact with us. We're a great group.
Yes, as a fellow Wolverine, so I'm glad to see Amy Young. So I'm over at the medical school.
Oh, great. Hi, Whitney.
Hello. Good to see you.
If you had a superpower, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Great question. Given the recent events of being on the East Coast and experiencing a nor'easter, I'd probably say the ability to fly. So I was stuck over in Boston trying to get to DC, had 3 flights delayed or canceled actually. So I'd probably say the superpower, the ability to fly would be mine.
Nice.
What about others?
Yeah, who wants to share?
Well, I've thought about having the superpower to read people's minds, which would be so fascinating, but maybe just too much information. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a danger with all those superpowers. Like the one that came to me was invisibility.
Yeah.
You could go anywhere, but lots of stuff I don't want to see. I don't want to.
Exactly. Maybe we were designed this way for a reason.
Exactly.
True,
Exactly.
because then what do you do with all that information? You're like, I
Yes.
can't unknow that now. I can't unsee that. I can't unhear that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you're you said at Michigan?
Yeah, so I'm over in I oversee our leadership development efforts over at the medical school.
Oh,
Been over there
yeah.
for a number of years. Yeah. We've done
Yeah.
some work with Ross, obviously.
Yeah.
With Gretchen and
Yeah.
Paula and Luton for a little bit. So I've had an opportunity to really, get a lot and learn from the POS,
Listen,
the Center for
yeah.
Positive Organization Scholarship.
Hi,
So
nice to
I
meet
actually,
you.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say hi to Chris because I can see he's on video. Have you been able to join your breakout room?
No, I'm sorry. I had an internet failure over here at the worst time. So
That's
trying to
okay. Do you want
reconnect.
to tell us very quickly who you are?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Chris Jimenez. I work at Ford Direct, part of the
Yay.
CPO. So yeah, hi,
Oh, nice. So,
nice to
glad
see you.
joined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw this invitation on LinkedIn and I wanted to jump in. So
Yay,
glad that you're
you.
here, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
thank you. Thanks for
It
having
looks
me.
like the breakout rooms are coming back. Nung, did you close them, Nung? Okay, awesome. I was putting a timer, but you're on it.
Yeah, they're closing in about a minute, Julian.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you.
I got to see a few different rooms, a lot of people talking about superhero powers, so that was really fun. We would be pretty powerful as a group here if we all had our superhero powers.
That
And
is so nice.
positive communication is a superhero power, so you all have this power already. So we can think about how to use our own superhero positive communication powers throughout the day.
It looks like almost everybody is coming back, checking it out. So we have a few people lingering. I think the rooms are closed. Is that correct, Nung? Yeah, so now everybody should be back. Okay. I hope you had a chance. I know it's a short amount of time, but we'll have more chances to be in breakout rooms after a few talks. So here's what we're going to do next. We have Dr. Tom Socha, who is going to deliver a short keynote, approximately 15 minutes, to give us a sense about what positive communication research is and how it's developed through time. We have a wonderful student who's going to introduce Tom. So Ben Lamb, who is at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, will be doing the formal introduction. So I'll hand it out to him, and then we'll pick it back up with some research briefs following Tom's presentation. So thanks so much, Ben. The floor is yours. We can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
Cool deal. Thank you, Dr. Mirivel. It is an absolute pleasure to be able to introduce Dr. Tom Socha. With an extensive list of accomplishments and contributions to the communication community, Dr. Socha is irreplaceable. He's been with Old Dominion University in Virginia Beach for 34 years and is currently a professor of communication there. He is also the founder of the Journal of Family Communication and an international book series, Lifespan Communication. He is a Chicago native growing up just outside of Wrigley Field. Go Cubs. He has been married to the love of his wife, Diana, for 40 years. And he has 2 grown, married, and successful children, a granddaughter with another one on the way. He finds joy in the creative freedom of communication scholarship and in making pizza. Tom's work in positive communication has paved the way for the scholar speaking today, and we would be here all day if I listed everything he has contributed to this field. We are incredibly grateful to have him here at the inaugural Positive Communication Network Conference. I hope you all lean in and enjoy Tom's presentation today. Over to you, Tom.
All right, unmute myself. Thank you, Ben. You did awesome. What I'm going to do is share some thoughts about positive communication development, but I'm going to share some gratitude along the way as a positive communication habit. So the direction I'm going to take, I'm going to keep this brief. I'm going to tell a short story. I'm going to talk a little bit about an evolving model, and then I wrote a poem for the occasion that I will share. So let's start with the story, right? I'm up in my little tent in the mountains thinking about writing this story. And once upon a time in 2009, okay, begins the story, as all good stories go, is my buddy Larry Fry. Larry is here in the room. Larry's with us. And at the time I was an early colleague, I actually met Larry as a student when I was finishing up at the University of Iowa. Came to Loyola, and Larry became literally my first mentor in the field of communication. I couldn't ask for a better person to help shepherd me through some of the things regarding publishing and connecting. Larry is just an amazing human being in terms of his contributions to group communication, applied communication, communication and activism, as well as communication research methods. He's absolutely phenomenal. We were talking about this earlier. Larry was one of Julien's committee members on his dissertation. And as we all know, Larry's probably the best editor that the field of communication has ever experienced. No doubt. If you've ever experienced detailed editing, Larry's absolutely aces. He's absolutely the best. So what I want to do is just say thanks and that I love Larry, because Larry kind of helped me get this started, right? My first publication, literally, that began my thinking regarding family communication began in a book that Larry was editing, the Routledge Handbook of Applied Communication Research they did with Ken Cisno. And Larry said, hey, Tom, why don't you do this thing where you do something about applied family communication? And I said, well, isn't all family communication applied? What is. And he goes, well, think about all the problems that families have and then the role of communication in fixing them. Well, as I developed this list of about 70 problems and got really depressed, and it was terrible, and I didn't know how is messages going to fix this problem? There's just so many problems. So I was wandering around at Barnes & Noble, and I came across Martin Seligman's book, Authentic Happiness. And that book changed my way of thinking dramatically, because what Martin said was, we start with problems in psychology, but maybe we shouldn't start there. Maybe we should start with strengths. Maybe we should start with the things that we do right. Maybe we should start with ideas about, intelligence and uplifting and caring and love and happiness. And I thought, what a great idea. That's absolutely fantastic. So I did get in touch with Marty. I became friends with him, learned about his work over the years, got connected to him. And so what I did is I switched the chapter around. Instead of working just exclusively on problems in 2009, I launched this thing by saying, no, let's look at family as an agency of potential towards a positive ontology of applied family theory and research. So I started bringing in Marty's work, Chris Peterson's work, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work in that chapter, and saying, these are good ideas. When we do have problems, we don't want to ignore the problems, but what we do want to do is think about how we can do a better job with our messages. And I thought communication was ripe to do that, taking a look at good things, taking a look at good topics. And the other thing that was going on in the field was my buddy Brian Spitzberg at San Diego State. Some of you may know Brian. He's the chapter leader and the head of the dark side of communication work, the dark side of relationships, the dark side of interpersonal communication. So he and I used to have these conversations back and forth, the positive guy and the dark guy. So we had these chats over the years. So what I did is I started thinking about, what can we do with this idea? How can we set it up? How can we work it? Did some more things. And what that led to is a whole bunch of things. Right. It led to a bunch of conferences. We did a pre-conference at NCA. Western States Communication Association did a conference, accentuating the positive. SSEA did a thing called Positive Communication. The West Virginia folks, I'm wearing the t-shirt from the Positive Center at West Virginia University that Scott Myers championed. There's a bunch of books, Maggie Pitts and I. Now, this is where I want to pause for a moment and also thank Maggie Pitts for her brilliance and wonder. She was a colleague of mine at Old Dominion. She's just an absolutely awesome person. And she also changed my ways of thinking regarding positive communication. So she came into play here, and there's a couple books that I did with her, articles I did with her. It was just absolutely wonderful. She is just a brilliant colleague and dean, and I'm so fortunate to be with her. Along the way, I met this guy, Julien. And Julien was also a guy I want to thank, because Julien is absolutely one of the best. I wish he was my dean. I wish he maybe was president of my university. I would follow him anywhere. He's brilliant. He's wonderful. He's kind. He's considerate. He's thoughtful. He's just absolutely a brilliant scholar. That led to this today thing. So there's been a whole bunch of stuff going on. Now, there's a review article that Gary Beck and I did that's also linked into the website that's going to be talked about later. And what I did in that article is sort of worked on, people said, so, hey, Tom, what is this thing? All right, positive communication. Well, what does it mean? Right? How does it work? It's kind of big. Is it just happy talk kind of stuff? And especially Brian Spitzberg goes, yeah, well, the dark side's more powerful than you. Come on. I mean, really. So what I did is we started thinking about this, and Maggie and I in our first book talked about positive communication as messages that prompt positive emotional states, positive relational outcomes, positive groups and organizational states. And we did use the word happy talk. Okay. And then we had so many manuscripts, we ended up doing another book on health, because we tied it into healthcare, because we thought, well, messages make for good things, right? So messages that facilitate conditions of optimal performance, optimal development in individuals, relationships, and systems. Then became messages as investments. Well, another guy came along after Maggie left Old Dominion to go to Arizona. Another guy who's absolutely brilliant, wonderful scholar, Gary Beck, my buddy at Old Dominion, came along and said, let's start doing some things. Now, Gary, again, a brilliant scholar, just a wonderful human being, great dad of a couple of wonderful twins here. He said, you know what, Tom, we should think about also resilience, right? And communication and resilience. That's what he focuses on. How do you bounce back from things? And so I thought, okay, so how do we gather this together? And so what we did is we came up with this idea that we need something that centers us, right? That it forms a kind of a motivating condition for us to actually, why do we do positive communication at all? Well, let me show you how this works. In the article, right, what we did is we said all human beings have needs. Everybody has a need, okay? Now, Maslow laid out some of the hierarchies of needs. Max Neef, we also cited in the article, Tay and Diener in the article. There's a bunch of these hierarchies that are out there in psychology. We all have needs, we all have needs to eat, maybe because it's St. Patrick's Day, to drink some green beer. We need to belong, feel the love, feel connected to each other, to feel good about ourselves, to achieve our potentials. And I said, well, let's look at the role of messages and message behaviors, right, in this process. Now, when you take a look at the messages, right, that we've sort of laid out, we've given some examples in there. We take a look at self-actualization, for example, right? Messages that can facilitate self-actualization would be positive. You can be anything you want to be, versus you will never amount to anything. Now, hear that message. You will never amount to anything. Oh my goodness. It's devastating. We are so proud of you. You're such a loser. Always glad you came, belongingness and love. You again? Right? Safety needs. Hey, we got your back. We're all in this together. Hey, your circus, your problem. Physiological needs, right? Soup's on, grab a bowl, join us. No soup for you. Okay. Now, no soup for you. Some of you may know, see the allusion to Seinfeld. It's the soup Nazi. There's an episode of Seinfeld in there where they go to buy soup at this place, and you have to buy soup in a certain way, otherwise you get kicked out of line, right? And if you don't order soup properly, he kicks you out. No soup for you. Next. No soup for you. So what Gary and I did is said, human beings are at the center of this. And what we're going to do is make positive communication facilitative of human needs. Negative communication is anything that takes away from it, denies it, limits it, says, no, you can't have it, damages it. Now, the important thing about this model too, in thinking about it, there's also going to be some weighting that's going on in the model, right? Because it's not a one-to-one thing. It's not like you can be anything you want to be message, counterweights against you'll never amount to anything. because John Gottman and Sonia Libermarsky and a whole bunch of other folks say, no, it's a percentage. And according to John Gottman in his research on marriage, it's a 5-to-1 ratio, right? These ratios come in when we think about positive to negative. And so you go, so if I hear you'll never amount to anything, it's going to take 5 messages at minimum coming from other people to be able to get back to some sort of center. Okay. So these negative messages are super, super powerful. And we got to think about them carefully when we use them, if we use them, why we use them, how we use them, what kind of circumstance are we going to use them in? When do we need to use them? Because the idea is here, if I'm going to facilitate human potential, I want to be able to do that. Okay, let me wrap this up with a poem because I want to give as much time as possible to all the other speakers. We've got so many people speaking today. Here at Old Dominion University, I co-taught a course with the person depicted, Don Ziegler. Don was a colleague in geography, and he and I taught this course, Lifespan Communication, Geography, and Food, from a positive perspective. We taught it for a whole bunch of years here, almost well over a decade. We took actually the students when we studied food to Cuba to study food ways and food things going on in Cuba. We had a wonderful, wonderful experience with them. Don was absolutely a wonderful colleague and just loved talking about communication. I learned a lot about geography from him, as well as communication from me. So it was a nice thing. For example, in class, Don used to drive him crazy that communication students would get up to talk about some sort of study, and he goes, "Where's your map?" And we go, "What? What do you mean?" "Well, where's the conversation taking place? You know, is it taking place here, there? It kind of matters. Sense of place is what a geographer does." And I go, "Okay." Well, sadly, my buddy Don died 2 weeks ago. He passed away, and we buried him this last weekend in Pennsylvania. 71, he had retired from the university. So what I want to do is pay tribute to Don, right, and some of the work that he's done, probably with this poem, right? And so the poem, when we think about it, right, is so how do you like your messages? And this will lead us into the next thing. This is for Don and for inaugurating the Positive Communication Network. So how do I like my messages, you ask? Steaks medium rare, but messages permit me to ponder. I begin each day with a healthy serving of NPR's fortifying facts, along with size of their well-seasoned narratives. If Yelp, OpenTable, and other such review spaces ranked America's tastiest news joints, to me, Morning Edition and All Things Considered are unquestionably number one. Mornings continue sharing servings of sweet kindnesses with my wife. Her messages are always alluring and luscious, yet they seem to be subtly organizing. Or is that just me, or perhaps for me? She's very skilled that way. Diana's messages are as beautiful as she is. On Friday mornings, I do pause to savor a very special serving of gourmet conversation as I listen to NPR's StoryCorps, one of America's most important yet overlooked repositories of super tasty positive communication. On most days, the sounds of Sirius XM's mixed metaphor jazz station Watercolors continue throughout the day. Watercolors inspires me, especially the sultry jazz tune voice of P.J. Faulkner. I once heard that snacking on jazz helps inspire creativity. Miles smiles, right? Miles Davis. I'm absolutely addicted to delicious questions and pizza. So much so that on some days, especially days before my students' assignments come due, it seems that all I consume are questions and hopefully pizza. There's nothing more satisfying than sharing a hearty bowl of well-prepared questions with hungry students. And message dinner dining is among my all-time favorite comestibles. For me, savoring stories of love and struggle and triumph with loved ones, along with pizza and a good Pinot, is as good as life gets. Bottom line, I would like all my communication to be positive. That is, I prefer my messages to be of the highest quality, prepared honestly and ethically, with lots of interesting flavors, and preferably without artificial ingredients. And because variety is a spice of life, I prefer that my message menus feature a wide variety of missives prepared and delivered by all the people of the world, hailing from all terroirs. Although I must admit, I do love a good noir, both the Pinot and the Phillip variety. I am forever grateful for all the positive message meals that I have had the good fortune to share with my fellow Earth Diners. I, and I'm sure my Positive Communication Network co-founders would join me, most sincerely want the communication that we all serve up to the world to be utterly positive. Gourmet message meals featuring a cornucopia of delicious and nourishing communications that evoke contentment, joy, happiness, and hope for all who dwell and dine and imbibe here on the third rock from the sun. And as we begin our inaugural Positive Communication Conference, I welcome you all and ask, so how do you like your messages? Thank you.
I know we can never do real clapping here, but we can take a moment to say thank you to Tom for his remarks and for setting in motion our conference here, and of course for the poem. Now, the poem does have a meaning to what is coming next. We have a brief little break activity that is connected to that. So how would you take your communication today? I believe that Nung is taking it from here. Take a moment and see which answer you would choose, and then we'll share the answers of the poll. Do you want your communication over easy, playful with humor? Do you want some good home cooking, honest and meaningful? Do you want to savor it like maybe a delicious meal, savoring communication moments in my life? Do you want it to be authentic with minimal artificial ingredients? Do you want it high fiber, rich and substantive? Do you want it extra spicy, like, communication with a kick to it? Maybe some comfort food, warm and comforting. Or maybe you like it all. Load me up with all of the above. Take a moment, and then we'll reveal the results. I could give him 10 more seconds, and then we'll see where most people are. It's actually got quite a variety here. All right, I'm going to stop the poll now just so we can continue. This was a bit of a mini break. I'm going to share the results. Can you see them? Is that good? Can I get a thumbs up? All right. So 14% of us just want it over easy. 20% want some good home cooking. 4% want to savor it. 18% are looking for authenticity. The number gets a little smaller with high fiber and spiciness, maybe some comfort food. And then a lot of us, 32%, want it all. Load me up with all the good stuff in my communication with other people. All right. Thank you so much, Tom. And what we're going to do next is focus on the first major area of our conference, which is research. So remember, we're going to have a focus on research, a focus on pedagogy and teaching of positive communication, and ultimately a focus on practitioner. So we'll start with some research briefs. Dr. Ryan Fuller, who's one of the co-founders from Sacramento State University, is going to lead that session. He's going to be a tough moderator to keep us on time. So I'll let him introduce the presentations and take over the flow.
Thank you, Julien. I will exercise my coaching skills that I have from T-ball and youth soccer as a tough moderator. So welcome everybody to Positive Communication Research session. I'm going to well, first of all, I want to say we have an excellent session today with 5 research brief presentations covering a variety of topics in positive communication. I'm going to establish the ground rules here before I hand it over to our first speaker. So each presenter has 6 to 8 minutes to present their research. I'll let presenters know when they have 2, 1, and 0 minutes remaining. Audience members, if you are not presenting, make sure your microphone's muted. At the end of the panel, all attendees will be invited to a Meet the Scholar session in a breakout room for Q&A. So if you have questions during the speaker's presentations, you can post those in the chat and we will grab those for the Q&A and note which presenter the question is for. So with that, I would like to welcome our first presenter, who is Stacy Young. Dr. Young, you're up.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for having me here today. So I know we have people from a variety of different fields here, but I'm a professor of communication from Cal State Long Beach. And when I tell people I'm a professor of communication, they often don't have any idea what that means, what I do. So I put it like this. I tell them that I'm a communication matchmaker and I connect people and positive communication strategies, one relationship at a time. And that seems to click with them. For me, that word connection is so key. I think that people crave connection. I know we benefit from connection. There's plenty of research that shows, for example, that people who feel connected in their romantic relationships are more satisfied. People live longer. Students who feel connected to each other and their professors or teachers learn more, and so on. But it got me thinking about, what about that other area of our lives where we spend so much time and energy? What about in the workplace? So who can foster a sense of connection in the workplace? How do they do it? And why does it matter? Now, I do think that we all influence each other in our interactions, and so there may not be one person solely responsible for creating a sense of connection in the workplace. There are certainly people that can set the tone, and those are the leaders. And I also should say, I don't necessarily think leaders have to be or are only people in higher up positions, but for the sake of my research, we did focus on individuals that were in a higher ranking position, like the bosses, the supervisors, and the managers. A lot of research on leadership and training on leadership focuses on how a leader should be. A leader should be resilient, trustworthy, decisive, self-aware. And I think those are all great qualities of a leader. But for me, I was interested in, what is it that leaders do to be those things? And that's where Julien's model of positive communication comes into play for me. And even though I'm a social scientist scholar and I'm supposed to be as objective as possible, in all transparency, I am a super fan of this model for so many reasons.
I think we may have
Oh, yeah.
Lost you for just a second, so keep going, slide.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm at a hotel, and so I think the Wi-Fi here is not ideal. Anyway, so we wanted to look at which communication behaviors aligned with different leadership styles. And the two leadership styles that we looked at were task-oriented and relationship-oriented. So task-oriented leaders are the individuals that are focused on achieving a goal, and relationship-oriented leaders are more about supporting the team and developing the team. To illustrate the distinction between the two, my mom and my stepmom provide a good example. When I have a problem and I call my mom, her first reaction is to try to fix it, and that's kind of a task-oriented leader. When I call my stepmom and tell her I have a problem, her first reaction is to be reassuring and serve as a sounding board, and that's more of like a relationship-oriented leader. And it also probably tells you a little something about my parents' divorce, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, so we were looking at task-oriented and relationship-oriented. And what we found is that for task-oriented, inspirational communication were significant. And I should note that these findings did not differ based on age, race, ethnicity, or gender. While people might gravitate more towards one leadership style or the other, or feel more comfortable with one, they are not mutually exclusive, and they both have their functioning for a successful organization. And so this lets me know, if you want to be seen as a solution-oriented leader, you should ask questions. And if you want to be seen as more of a people person, type of leader, you should give compliments. And if you want to be viewed as a leader in general, then hone those active listening skills and inspirational communication. The next thing that we wanted to look at is, so how, when leaders use these positive communication practices, how does that affect the work environment? And particularly, we wanted to look at how that might shape a positive emotional culture in the workplace. And so a positive emotional culture is when employees feel joy, companionate love, pride, and gratitude in their work and with each other. And the outcomes that we were focused on were employee engagement, employee advocacy. So employee engagement is like the amount of dedication or energy that individuals put into their work, or the extent to which it's part of their identity. And then employee advocacy is when employees support, defend, or recommend their organization to others. And both engagement and advocacy are beneficial to both employees and their organizations. Employees who are engaged and who advocate report greater well-being, they report reduced burnout, they tend to be more productive, and they have less attrition. So it's obviously some valuable outcomes for both the individual and the organization. And so what we found is that leaders who enact positive communication behaviors do indeed foster a positive emotional environment. And a positive emotional environment does indeed increase employee engagement and does improve employee advocacy. However, there was no direct link between the positive communication behaviors and the engagement and advocacy results in and of themselves. So that got me thinking, well, why might this be? And to me, I think it falls back on that notion of connection. It may not be that individual behaviors alone, but rather in collaboration with each other, create what I like to think of as a culture of care. And that culture of care is then me, I found that to be really exciting and really empowering, because it means that individuals, leaders, people, you, me, we can all work together to create this culture of care. And then that culture of care can have a ripple effect of a wealth of beneficial outcomes for both individuals and their organizations. And so I hope that with this information, you too can feel that you are a communication matchmaker, and perhaps more importantly, you too have some practices that you can take with you to help generate a culture of care in your environment. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Stacy. Now I would like to hand it over to my colleague, Julien Mirivel.
Thanks, Ryan. I wanted to tell the group that you'll have a chance to interact. So we are doing short presentations, and then we'll have a breakout session. So thank you so much, Sly. And then we'll, once we're done with all the little research briefs, we'll be able to all come together and go into the room in which you'd like to continue the conversation. All right, let me get into presenter mode here. And hopefully you can see this. So in approximately 2019, a company called Heifer International reached out to me because they needed some help. Heifer International is a global nonprofit organization, which is headquartered here in Little Rock. And their mission is to end hunger around the world and to help foster sustainable living income in communities across Asia, Africa, and also in the Americas. They came to me because they needed help finding a way to measure and understand the degree of personal transformation that was taking place in their beneficiaries. What Heifer does is they go into a community, they collaborate with members of that community, they help individual households who live in utter poverty work together, form what we call a self-help group. And in the process of forming a self-help group, begin the process of social change. At some point in that process, Heifer is known and offered, seeks support from donors because they deliver, animals to those families to help move those families towards sustainable living income. But along the way, there's a series of training that Heifer beneficiaries receive, including something called the Cornerstone training, a training on gender and empowerment, a training on savings, and a training on animal management. There's a wide variety of them. So they came to me because they wanted to know what is the nature of personal transformation in those individuals and who have partnered with Heifer, and can we measure it? So I formed an interdisciplinary research team with Dr. Avinash Tambre, who is here today, Dr. Ryan Fuller, who is part of the effort, Dr. Tusti Tenbenzo, who is a professor of criminal justice here at the university, and Dr. Kirk Leach, who's a faculty in the School of Public Affairs. And since that time, we really have been trying to answer these questions. So today, I want to give you a bit of a preview of where we are and what we've been doing. This is one of my favorite quotes that we collected recently in India in a longitudinal study with a Heifer beneficiary. Somebody had 18 months of Heifer participation. Bihar, India is one of the most impoverished region in India, with approximately 60 to 75% of the population in Bihar being completely illiterate. But this is the story she shared at 18 months after Heifer intervened. If we try to break a wooden stick, she said, it will break easily. If we try to break 2 sticks, it will need more effort than earlier. If we try to break 3 sticks altogether, it won't be easy as earlier. But then if we try to break 10 sticks altogether, we won't be able to break it at all until and unless we separate them. This is how a team works. If a team is united, then no one can break it. In trying to develop this effort, one of the first steps is together as a team, we developed a conceptual model of personal transformation. In the time that I have today, I won't be able to go into a lot of depth, but for us, personal transformation includes at least 7 elements that we believe is taking place in those Heifer interventions. One is a change in identity, the way the person thinks of themselves, the way they look at themselves, their sense of self-esteem, and their sense of confidence. The second element is what we call perception of others. That is, instead of viewing your neighbor as an enemy or as a threat, you begin to view the neighbor as a potential collaborator, as a friend, as somebody that you can work with and accomplish meaningful outcomes. The third element, which is my personal favorite, is communication competency. We believe that when Heifer works with those communities and they are transformed, that people experience a change in the way they communicate with other people. The fourth element is state of leadership, which is really a concept coming from the field of business, led by Robert Quinn from the University of Michigan. There's a lot of elements embedded there, but one of them is a sense of purpose. So really, as a leader, the more we move towards understanding our purpose as an individual, the more we're able to accomplish those goals. At the heart of the model, you see the concept of empowerment, which includes psychological empowerment, educational empowerment, but also sharing of responsibilities in the home, both men and women being able to earn income, etc. And then on the outskirts of the model, we have a concept called intercultural sensitivity and development, which is really to say that when people are fundamentally transformed, they often become more flexible with understanding culture and with understanding their place within that culture. So they become more flexible in what they do. And very often, in some stories we've received, they break the norms, they break the cultural norms to get to a better place in their life. And then finally, we believe that when people are transformed, they move increasingly towards higher levels of civic and community engagement. So what we did is we took this conceptual model and then developed a measurement tool, both a survey tool and the qualitative instrument, and we started traveling. So we've led a project in Bihar, India. We've got multiple studies. One is a cross-sectional study across a 2-year time period. Then we're also doing a longitudinal study where we're following individuals through time. We just finished one at 18 months in 2022. Then in 2023, last year, we traveled to Uganda to collect some data from the work that was taking place there. And literally last night, I came back from Honduras because we're doing some research in Honduras to continue to apply the tool. Let me give you a sense of what we're doing in terms of the data that were collected. We started in Nepal, where we collected informal interviews spanning 30 years of community development. We then developed the conceptual framework. We went to India, where we did 800 surveys, 100 in-depth interviews spanning across 4 time periods. Then we went to Uganda. We did the same thing, 800 surveys, 100 in-depth interviews spanning 4 time periods. And then in Honduras, the data is not yet collected, but we have a goal of collecting 600 surveys across 3 time periods, and you're wondering why we had to make that change. I'll tell you very quickly, mostly it's money. We ran out of money, and so we had to adapt and only look. We're still looking at change, but we had to adapt our time periods. But we're still doing 100 in-depth qualitative interviews. I hope I get a chance to share some of the results in the breakout room, but just as a quick view, you can see that what our data is showing. This is straight from Uganda. We have a scale on positive communication and a scale of interpersonal communication. You're seeing that people's self-perception of their communication skills does change, particularly at the 12-month mark, which makes sense because in Uganda, most of the training is taking place between 6 to 12 months. After 6 to 12 months, we do see a decrease. On the bottom slide, you see that it kind of went below the level that's at the original level from the baseline sample. That's really uncommon in our data. Across all of our models, what makes the most sense is what you see on top, which is people's skills improve, and then there's a bit of a kind of a waning down, but it really goes back to the original level. It does here in terms of interpersonal communication. We also have done qualitative analysis of the interviews. In a quick word, what our data shows is that our participants across 2-year period fundamentally changed the way they communicate with other people in their degree of expressiveness, in their degree of assertiveness, in their degree of persuasiveness, in their sense of openness and ultimate positiveness. I hope I'll have a chance to unpack this, but I'll leave you with one final story. When I interviewed one of the participants in Nepal, she gave me advice about how to lead my own life. And this is what she said. She said, if you want to make a change in your life, you cannot just take care of the well-being of your family. You have to take care of your community. Thank you so much, and I hope that we have a chance to talk about it together.
Thank you, Julien. Now I'd like to turn over the floor to Dorota Zaborska.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, good night. It is 2 o'clock in the morning in Kyoto. So I'm a specially appointed professor at Osaka University. I'm a long-time resident in Japan, and I'm also currently a PhD candidate at Waseda University. My main research theme is psychology of language learning, motivation, and learning foreign languages in the third age. And through the lens of positive psychology, I explore the concept of savoring and the capacities to consciously attend to positive experiences in one's life. But I am focusing on third age language learners and how such capacities to savor their language learning is positively affecting their overall well-being. But I'm also a pedagogue, and as a pedagogue, I explore tailored CLIL approaches, content and language integrated approaches in language classes and a positive language education. And today I would like to share with you my experience or how I am using Julien Mirivel's model of positive communication in my classroom. So allow me to share the screen. Right. Okay, my positionality as a qualitative researcher affects the ways I carry out and interpret my research, and it also influences my teaching philosophy. So having such a dual professional identity isn't special, of course, and as you can see in the diagram, the researcher me is with certain interests is facing the teacher me. Some topics are overlapping, some stand on their own, but I have always paid attention to possibilities of what could be applied from the research to my classroom. There is an expression in Japanese, hanashi ni hana o sakaseru, which literally means to let the conversation bloom, or in other words, to have a lively conversation. So in this picture, what you can see 2 students talking to one another in front of a blackboard, and the drawing that you see, the flower, is has been inspired by and based on the model of positive communication by Julien Mirivel. The activity that I use over the whole semester is called I See You, I Hear You, I Cheer for You. It is a speaking activity in which students construct and perform dialogue skits. The purpose is for students to experience the joy of being seen and heard while satisfying their very often hidden creative needs. It also, another purpose is to practice positive communication with one another and thus discover the relevance and applicability of positive communication in their everyday life. In combination, these experiences help them find speaking meaningful. While there are various underlying linguistic, cognitive, or affective factors of foreign language speaking anxiety, these are all intertwining in a complex way and fluctuating in their degree of presence. It is this meaningfulness that has a great impact on students' willingness to engage and encourages them to overcome their fears of or reluctance to speak. The older the learners are, the bigger the differences between what they can say in their first language and what they can express in their foreign language. So this gap is very frustrating and discouraging. So this activities approach has the aim of raising awareness of the power of positive communication, interpersonal communication, enhancing the well-being of all participants in the language classroom. My initial incentive to introduce positive communication was to appeal to students who seemed more reluctant to speak in class, especially after more than a year of taking classes online. With very limited in-person interactions, the students did not have much chance to really befriend each other and as they would have in the physical classroom. So I wanted to combine building trust with language practice. The flow of activity itself is brainstorming and initial discussion, explanation and instructions, performing the dialogue skits and reflecting. So here you can see the instructions. I asked my students to create a dialogue with the 6 components of positive communication in pairs or in small groups of 3. And because they are talking in front of their classrooms, these can be a slightly artificial, not completely genuine, especially the disclose deepened part. I tell them that they can make this part up, but the whole dialogue needs to be believable and realistic. And they, at the beginning of the dialogue, they tell us who they are. I ask them to remember that only the greeting component comes in the beginning and at the end, and all other parts appear in a different order and can be repeated several times. I would like to share with you. So here you can see the brainstorming part where students talk in small groups and ponder about what positive communication for them is and share some keywords on the blackboard. And here you can see students actually engaging and performing their dialogue skits. What I always try to encourage them is that I would like them to move from quote unquote just a friendly everyday conversation to a more influential, deeper, closer communication, to a more inspiring, positive communication. Here are students. Here you can see the students in showing various dialogues. And I would like to, I think that in the reflective essays, I would like to share just one from which you will intuitively understand how positive communication is really very beneficial for them. So this is a student, 18-year-old student from my course. She writes, all of my classmates were smiling when we were listening to positive communication. While I noticed it, I was able to feel the goodness of positive communication again. Also, this time, some elements of positive communication were decided by my teacher, but there are many other positive components, and I thought that they could be created naturally without being aware of them. Furthermore, I think that positive communication has the power to make both creators and listeners happy. I paired with one of my classmates 3 times in a row, but we always smiled when we did this assignment and forgot that it was part of a lesson or task. By thinking about positive conversations, I was able to find out what words make people happy and how to encourage them so that they don't get hurt. Everyone else in the class created great conversations. Some of them are realistic, others are unrealistic. Also, there were many conversations that I could sympathize with, so I was interested in listening to them. Also, most of the people spoke in fluent English, so it was very easy to hear, and at the same time, it became a listening practice. I wanted to be able to speak better like them. I have learned through this lesson that it's very important to talk positively when talking to someone, and what you should be careful about at the time is to think about things from the other person's point of view. It was very fun class. Thank you. And another one,
Dorota, we're at time. We're actually a half a minute over our time, so we have to transition to the next speaker.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us in the middle of the night in Japan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Abdulatif Hajismail Ahmed. Thank you for joining us, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this Positive Communication Network, particularly Dr. Julien Mirivel. I'm really honored to be part of this event. Today I'm going to present my topic. Actually, it is my thesis, my PhD thesis. It's read like this: the effect of positive communication on Ethiopian university students' interpersonal and intergroup relationships. I would like to begin with a quote from Martin Luther King, who says, "People fail to get along because they fear each other, and they fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other." So here, Martin Luther King is suggesting that people fear each other because they have lack of knowledge, which is stemming from that lack of knowledge, and also he's suggesting to effective communication as a that could help bridging this gap. So when I bring the context of my research, it is in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is in Horn of Africa. We are a multi-ethnic state with over 80 nationalities, 150 million people. So we have a lot of different social backgrounds. So in such cases, normally, this cultural diversity is something beautiful, but when it is manipulated for one reason or another, it can lead to some conflicts. And so it is important to take care about how to deal with it. And particularly in universities, it is common for the intergroup conflicts because the young generations are coming together and they are so energetic, and therefore we expect this intergroup conflict. So I just wanted in my research to see if positive communication could has effect on the intergroup and interpersonal relationship and solving some conflicts. So for this, I just sorry, I have to pass here. Positive communication, it has been said a lot. These are the pioneering scholars, and I don't go to all these things. Just one point, like Mr. Julien says, positive communication can transform any ordinary moment of human interaction into an extraordinary one. That's why I decided to just use that. So for my design, I just conducted a quasi-experimental research to examine the effects of positive communication. So I designed a positive communication program for 8 sessions, and then I have 2 groups, that is experiment and control group, and also I have 2 scales to measure their relationships. This is like the design, and the model, again, model of Dr. Julien Mirivel is the one I used, and almost the 6 elements were included in my program. And also I have used positive communication activities, both from positive communication as well as positive psychology, and they were really very effective. This is the flow chart. I've got about 97 students or participants, almost equal in number. So the results show that positive communication was really effective in augmenting interpersonal relationship of the students, because there was a significant difference in the experiment group as opposed to the control group at the post-test. And the same is true for the intergroup relationship, but it was less effective than that of the interpersonal relationship. So finally, we can say that positive communication program was effective, and it can be used for fostering relationships. It has had great impact on interpersonal connections. And this study's result is an empirical evidence on the applicability of positive communication, because it contributes to a deeper understanding of the dynamic interplay between positive communication and relations. So we can practice this positive communication, particularly the techniques to facilitate intergroup contact. As a way forward, I think stakeholders, particularly academicians, universities, and the governments, they need to take care of the risks that could come out of the intergroup and the interpersonal conflicts and facilitate positive intergroup contacts. Teachers may assist students by modeling the positive communication habits, and positive communication intervention program might serve as a springboard for the upcoming researches and experiments. And finally, the effect of positive communication in the mediated intergroup relations should be examined, because during the study, I have seen that most of the problems are coming from politically motivated social media hate speech and so on. Therefore, I would like to finish my presentation with a quote from Professor Socha, who says, if such a shift that accentuating the positive perspective is taken seriously, the studies would focus less on the role of communication in solving family problems and more on the role of family communication in creating conditions that may prevent family problems. So let's accentuate the positive and go forward on studying and making researches on the positive side and bright side of communication. And I hope we will bring about positive impact in social and as whole general aspects. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abdulatif. Now I would like to introduce Phillip Glenn. And the floor is yours.
Right. I will share my screen and share sample. And go to the slide view. I'll put on closed caption. All right. I hope you can see and hear. You can hear me and see my slide. Okay. Thanks for being here. I'm interested in capturing moments of positive communication as they arise in real life interactions. And so along those lines, I invite you to think for a few minutes with me about what's commonly called paraphrasing or reflecting or formulating. And that's the practice of restating in different words what a prior speaker has said or implied. Now, this practice supposedly demonstrates understanding. It demonstrates that you understand and what you understand. This is when you say back to somebody, so what I hear you saying is, and say something back. It invites the other party to confirm your understanding or to correct it, which is very helpful to joint meaning making. And it's a core practice associated with what's called active listening or active empathic listening. The great humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers talked about this as one of the skills through which he tried to create therapeutic relationships of congruence and caring and empathy. It's advocated in a wide variety of professional roles, as well as for interpersonal relationships. You see it advocated in interpersonal communication textbooks, sometimes called or part of what's called the speaker-listener technique. Well, my research question I'm working on is what makes paraphrasing positive? After all, I think of positive and negative as operating, in kind of a yin and a yang relationship, where just about any communicative action that could be positive could also be negative. So to get further grounding in this, I turn to the word formulating, because that word has been used in conversation analysis, the field I'm in, to study these things. And here are just a couple of things we know about paraphrases or formulations. When one person says back to another something they just said, they preserve some of what was said, they transform some, and they delete some. And for those of you who've studied the notion of reframing, those moves are right at the heart of a reframing kind of practice. Formulations put into words what somebody has said, the gist, or sometimes what somebody is implying but not stating directly, the upshot. In fact, you can even formulate back a nonverbal message from somebody. And we know that formulations convey a stance. They can be kind of neutral. They can be adversarial. They can be jokes. They can also, though, be affiliative. And I think affiliative formulations get closer to what's likely to be thought of as a positive communication kind of practice. So that's what I'm looking at. My research approach, hidden under the bars there, let's see, I think we can admit somebody. And close that. Oh, I meant to put on close cache. Okay. My research approach is in language and social interaction as the wider umbrella, specifically conversation analysis. Very briefly, I'm interested in how specific communicative actions, you might say messages, contribute to sequences of interaction, and how those help shape activities that people jointly construct together. And the arrows go both directions because the sequences shape the meanings of the actions and the activities and so forth. Specifically to positive communication, I'm interested in how positive actions might shape positive interactions, which then might contribute to positive outcomes. And again, those arrows go both directions. The current work I'm doing is drawing on data from a really interesting podcast series called Conversations with People Who Hate Me. And in these podcasts, host Dylan Marin, and there he is, gets people to come on his show who have posted hostile online comments to him about him, or have through other settings sent and or received hostile communication. He gets folks to come on the podcast and talk about what happened. I take this in the spirit of positive deviance as an example of someone trying to use positive communication to turn around this tendency of online communication to get so snarky and hostile and antagonistic. I'm collecting formulation sequences. I'm studying them through transcription and analysis. I'd like to share a couple of them with you now to show you just two formulation sequences, and then we'll close. In each, you're going to see and hear three parts: a speaker describing some emotional experience, a respondent formulating back their understanding of part of that, and the first speaker confirming or amending. There's that. So in the first one, you're going to hear the guest, who goes by the name Kay, has spoken at some length about having been really irritated by a discussion in a previous podcast episode. As she kept thinking about it, her upset only increased, and we pick up near the end of her turn.
It's one of those things where, where something just gets you. Like, it just gets to you. And this
It crawled under your skin.
It really did. It just brought up a lot of issues for me.
So in this instance, Kay uses this universal it gets you, to invite identification with what she's describing. And, haven't we all had those moments where something just gets us? Dylan acknowledges, she restates in a slightly modified way, and then Dylan overlaps to paraphrase, this is turn number 2, what she said. His formulation is an evocative kind of metaphor. It crawled under your skin. So together they create a moment, I would argue, of positive communication. She expresses her emotional experience in a way that's accessible. He empathizes without judgment, encourages more talk, and K confirms and elaborates. In the next example, Allie has disclosed that as an adolescent, she posted hateful messages online anonymously to herself. Dylan has asked whether she felt at that time like she could reach out to people around her to help. Allie explains why she thought at the time she couldn't reach out to friends, to her mom, to her high school guidance counselor. As we pick up the excerpt, she concludes this turn.
No, I didn't really have anyone to reach out to.
Mm-hmm. And so in a sense, the reason you're writing these hateful things to yourself is a cry for help.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you get anyone who responded to that call?
Yes, actually.
So as Allie wraps up this lengthy turn, Dylan succinctly formulates with this phrase, capped by this phrase, a cry for help. And if you think about that metaphor, a cry for help is what we do when we have no one to reach out to. In this, he normalizes Allie's action as a recognizable one. There's an idiom that fits it, and he shows empathy and affiliation. She confirms, even intensifies. She says, absolutely, in turn 3. He's really gotten the gist of what she's saying. Dylan then follows up with a question, and more talk happens on topic. So Allie relays significant emotional experience. Dylan empathizes without judgment, encouraging more talk, and Allie confirms and elaborates. So as these two examples, I hope, show or at least suggest to you, formulating the action and the sequence lies at the heart of joint meaning making. You can really see how meaning is not located in one individual, but is co-constructed by the participants. Positive formulations empathize, right? They demonstrate taking the perspective of the person to whom they're being addressed. They present the prior speaker's perspective as understandable, as reasonable, or as moral, and they withhold judgment. Now, you might say that presenting as reasonable is a kind of judgment, but they withhold explicit evaluative assessments of what's being said. And so in these ways, formulations and formulation sequences can contribute to moments of empathic connection and dialogue. Well, that's what I'm working on. Thanks for listening, and I hope I get to chat with some of you in the breakout session.
Thank you so much, Phil, and thank you to all of our speakers. And as Phil noted there, we will be having breakouts. So I'm going to put the breakouts in which room corresponds to which speaker. And I look forward to the conversation that we have in our breakouts.
So I think we're getting the breakout rooms created. I'll just read it out loud. Brian has put it in the chat if you did not receive it. So breakout 1 will be, the room 1 will focus on Tom Socha and will be facilitated by Ben. Breakout 2 will focus on positive leadership with Sly and her focus on leadership, which will be facilitated by Cawthor. Breakout 3 will focus on positive communication and personal transformation with me, but also Avinash Tombre is joining me, and Ryan Fuller is also part of that project. Breakout 4 will focus on positive communication with Dorota, and Alice Fanari will be the facilitator. And then we've got breakout 5, positive communication intergroup relations with Abdul Latif, and breakout room 6 with Phil. So once the rooms get set up, please choose your room, and we'll have about 15 to 16 minutes to really engage with each other in conversation. Hope you can join us.
Please let us know if you're having any troubles accessing a breakout room, or also know that you can, if you're having a hard time picking, visit many of them. And we, the hosts can also put you in a room if you're having a hard time, and I can assign you in a room. So if anybody is out there thinking, gosh, this is my first time using Zoom in this way, I'm happy to help you find a room.
Hi, it's Joy Hart. Could you move me to room number 1, please?
Hi, Joy. Yeah.
Thank
Nice
you
to
so
see
much.
you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you very much.
I'm not seeing how to join my room. Can you help me?
I think so, yes. Let's see. Joy didn't move over.
I'm supposed to be in 6.
All right, let's see. Here you are, room 6. Yes, I should send you. I have to send you to your room.
Thank you.
It takes maybe a minute, but you'll get zapped in there, I think.
Thanks, Maggie. I'm traveling.
Hi, Maggie. This is Jessica Gasarek. I'm at the 650 number because it's early in Hawaii and I've been trying to get here off to school and all that. I'm on my mobile instead of on
I'm so glad
regular
you're here.
Zoom.
Aloha.
So hi, sorry, but I don't think I don't think from the mobile number I can move myself to a room. Would you be able to move me either to the first room or the 6th room, whichever you want to do to balance out?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jess. I'm going to go ahead and move you. Well, you went. She moved herself.
I just did it, Maggie. Sorry, I just did it.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah. Jess, you'll be there in a minute.
I can't get into room 6. Can someone help me?
Okay, let me try that again.
Oh,
Just
here.
coming in to
Okay,
mention
I
that.
think I got it now. Yeah.
Well, I'll stop sharing my slides. There we are. Good. And we have a small gathering of us here in the let's see, Lawrence, I've got your message here. Move you into room 6. We can do that for you. Kristen might have already done it. Excellent.
Hello.
Hi, Mary.
Hello, dear. I've not meant to overwhelm you. This is intense work.
This is intense work. And, hopefully at the end of the day, you'll also have a feeling of like a little bit of rejuvenation, or, like when we do all this work, like you feel really, really satisfied. We're also going to take a little stretching break after this session. So that will be good too. Is there a conversation room that you would like to join, or shall we stay here and just debrief a little bit about our experiences so far?
Well, from those who know me, really, I'm a talkative, someone, and I feel like I can't breathe because I can't talk. And but I understand the time constraint and basically intense schedule here. But it's been lovely to be here. I am a very privileged student of the field of applied communication. And one general question that I discussed with Dr. Mirivel to pose that maybe anybody could answer. I see diversity here. I see diverse cultures. People come from diverse backgrounds. It's amazing. It's wonderful. I am of Persian heritage, and I identify with that. I am at home with everybody. However, we are aware, some of us that are older actually in age and station of life, that we come from cultures and traditions where we were in the communities. It's a collective concept, and family and community and clans. And so we were always trained and in the way of love and warmth and kindness and help and assistance. And so some, if not all of the elements of the model of, that is I guess the center of focus here, we just took as children, as babies, as teenagers with us. Now, this is all okay. What I was wondering is, what do we find so particular in the model when we come into this program, especially graduate, doctorate, and all that, that really stands out, that we say we can take this and I guess put it with other ingredients that our parents, our grandparents taught us. I'm talking, with these diverse cultures and traditions. What is it that is really standing out? So sorry, I didn't mean to make it such a long question, but I hope we understand what I'm trying to see what's happening here. In my Persian culture, kindness, I mean, we greet, we are master greeters, we ask, we we disclose, we compliment, all of that is there. And then, of course, this is a very disciplined, way of doing it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary, yes, I feel the same way. Luckily, I get to talk a lot, but if I'm not talking, I also feel like I'm not breathing, like, ooh, let's make this happen. That's been tough, but I do hope that this conference allows us to create more networks where we can have these conversations. I absolutely echo what you've noticed here. We have international diversity, we have linguistic diversity, we have age diversity. We have the topic of positive communication has resonated with so many different peoples across scholarly fields of practice. We know we have people from education joining us, organizations joining us. So we're really reaching that breadth there. But I think what you're talking about too is not just the intergenerational and deeply intergenerational transfer of values through communication, but also how when we expand our network and our horizon and we connect with other people and other cultures, that allows us greater access to the things that make life worth living. And when we cultivate that in our children, and we upwards cultivate in our own parents, in our own workplaces, to communicate in ways that create those structures of positivity, we are making that shift toward embracing and retaining what we know is at the heart of humanity, which is that desire to belong, that desire to connect, to unify with one another. There are competing conflictual needs as well. But when we think about that sort of conflict, we often make that the dominant narrative, and we forget that the reason why we're still here and still fighting so hard for a sense of collective humanity is because that is our fundamental drive. So I love that you put that together, both across these generations, but also across the different cultures and languages that we tap into. How about others of you in this Zoom room? I love Mary kind of bloomed. She blossomed this conversation. What do you guys think?
Because I would be interested if anybody feels like they have had an experience culturally that did not sort of accept this kind of thinking, especially if we're talking about Mirivel's model, right? Because I think it's wonderful, Mary, that is how you've really grown up, right? It's sort of these things have just been a part of your life. But I wonder if there are cultures or individuals that would disagree right? That I'm sort of interested, like you said, in sort of this cross-cultural experience around positive communication. And I don't know if anybody in this room has some thoughts.
I'm sorry, agree with what?
No, I'm just interested in if people have experiences in other cultures that maybe.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Kristen, I think for me, when I do study culture and I travel as much as I can, and started my communication research looking at intercultural communication. That was my first foray. So when I think about Julien's model, I mean, it starts with greeting, right? And that again is, so the greetings differ. Our proximity to a person that we're greeting, whether or not we want to be able to be so close to their person that we can feel the heat off their body, or their breath, like that, in their smell, their perfume, whatever it is, or we like something a little more distant, like here's my entire, kind of arm distance from somebody. But even though there's a variety of greetings, all cultures have a form of recognizing the humanity in the other. And so for some, they do it for reasons of security and protection, right? Like we do, this sort of handshake or really close, coming in that close is also so I can know that I'm safe with you. You're not carrying something that's going to hurt me. But these have developed over, centuries of these rituals. And so when I think about that, or I think about listening, I think about complimenting. Sometimes I have a hard time with complimenting, and I work with my students, like, let's talk about how a compliment can be, it's face threatening. So it's a burden for a person to receive a compliment, right? So that one, I think there might be more work to do internationally, but the intention behind that, I think, is really good. The way that we disclose, the way that we listen, these different parts of the model, I think, vary across languages and cultures, but I think they're there. So wouldn't it be fun if we explored the model of positive communication across cultures and really tested each of those? He doesn't put it in a flower petal, but that's starting to become a theme of our conversation here today. Wouldn't it be great to study those flower petals of positive communication across cultures?
And that's exactly why I'm asking. So I'm interested, and Maggie knows I'm taking a group of students to Ireland for a couple weeks this summer, and I'm interested in that. And so definitely want to investigate. So
yeah, Kristen, I'm waiting for others to have the opportunity, but as you're speaking, what I'm thinking about is it's great that Dr. Mirivel put greeting first, because I'm talking a lot from my personal experience that 9 out of 10 times people ask me, interested individuals or curious about my background, they ask me first before they greet me.
Right.
Right with asking instead of greeting. The connection that we're talking about is not made. And I hesitate to respond off and on. I say, who are you? It happens all the time with everyone, adults, mature people, young people, in any place, every place, organizational setting, no setting, and they immediately go into, for instance, where are you from? I'm like, what?
Hello. Yeah. You're like, hi, my name is Mary.
You're a stranger. Should I talk to you at all? This is great, because greeting is a space where you pause and you really look at, make eye contact, see the person, or maybe you hear the person, over the phone. It is a matter of getting comfortable, and this is really lacking. And I see that this is wonderful. In Persian culture, in Japanese culture, Chinese culture, Turkish culture, we come and say, for instance, salam alaikum, peace with you, etc. And then we hug, and then we kiss, and then how are you doing? And, and so we kind of warm it up. before we say, oh, by the way, where have you been? I haven't seen you. Then we go into asking. And then they come out and say, oh, I'm okay. How are you doing? What have you been doing? So a lot of asking going on. Then they say, oh my gosh, you look great. You look wonderful. You haven't been sick. You know, you look wonderful. You did great. We go into complimenting, and then we go into disclosing. You know what happened to me. You know, this. So you see what I am talking about. So it just comes so naturally, and I am so pleased to see the Mirivel's model really is coaching and teaching the right aspects of, you know, primary communication in any setting, especially I mean, it's happened to me at work throughout the years. You know, they come straight and say, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, let me get here first. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mary. We've just had a lot of fun hanging out it's like the lobby of the conference hotel. A couple people came into the conference while you guys did breakout session, and we had an opportunity to talk about really talk about greetings and how the diversity that we have in this group, and diversity in language and culture, and all the different organizations and lifeways that we represent. And Mary was so kind to bring that out and teach us a little bit about that intergenerational transfer of greeting and loving communication behaviors. So it's like a total delight. This is why lobbies are important. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Julien, since he's emceeing and not actually me. I know you're out there, Julien.
I think it's you, Maggie. I think you can take it from there. I think we're taking a break and you're leading us through a little bit of space so we can take what we've been learning together.
All right, that sounds really good. So yes, this is for you sports fans, of which I'm not, so this could be a bad metaphor, but this is like our 7th inning stretch. And I don't even know if that means real stretching, but in our case it does. So we've been stretching our minds, and now it is time to stretch our bodies. We have short 5-minute break scheduled for you to refresh. So if now's the time you need to take a little break to get your coffee or water, that's great. Come back to our Zoom room in 5 minutes, or stay with me for a very short breathing and movement exercise. And so we'll just start together. I've already climbed out of my chair because I was starting to be very angular shape. But if you're sitting in a chair or reclining back, stretch your body. See if you can make yourself sort of long. Get rid of all the crinkles from sitting there in front of your computer screen, and lift everything up. So for me, I think about raising this part of my head, the crown, gently rolling my shoulders back, maybe tucking in my chin just a little bit to open up this part of my body. I invite you to find something to ground yourself. Connect with the earth as we connect with one another, perhaps by placing both feet on the floor if you are able, or your hands on a solid surface like a desk or a chair in front of you. And now take a deep breath. Really fill up your diaphragm. And exhale. And let's breathe together. So slowly fill your lungs with air to replenish your body and your brain, and then exhale. Imagine that oxygen feeding your blood and moving through your body. Trace it with your mind and slowly fill your lungs with air, and we'll do 2 more deep breaths together. And at the end of the 3rd one, we're going to exhale with a noisy sigh. You can take off your unclick your mute button. We can all sigh together, one that feels really good. So we'll take 2 good breaths, and on the 3rd one, we'll release it with a sigh. So deep breath in and out, and in and out. Now on this one, noisy sigh. Love it. I'm glad we recorded that. That sounds really good. Okay, guys, guess what? Keep breathing. Turns out it's really important. So now I invite you to stand with me if that's present for you. If you're not able to stand at this time, shift yourself in your chair or wherever you are, and let that be your connection with Earth. And then just go ahead and move gently, right? We're probably a little bit rigid. We're excited because we're talking about positive communication things. So if we just kind of relax our body a little bit and move. Maybe think about a favorite song, maybe an Irish jig in the back of your head so that you feel comfortable. Just, you know, if you have kids, you're shaking the shakies out or wiggling the jigglies out or whatever it is, just go ahead and do it. Don't be shy. If we were at a conference, we would right now be zipping past each other, trying to cut through that coffee line, getting to our next destination. So go ahead and move your body. And then I'm going to have you just go ahead and start doing some stretches. You can't, maybe if I back up. Yes, that'll work. Not going to fan. So you can stretch your arms out. Think like you're pushing those walls. Some of you might have had a superhero power where you could move walls. That would be great. This is the chance. Go ahead and stretch your arms out and push through the palms. And then you can slowly rise them. As you're rising them, turn your palms sort of inward. Yeah, beautiful. I see some of you doing some beautiful stretches. Turn those palms toward one another. Twinkle your fingers, dazzle those fingers, and go ahead and give a nice tall line. For me, I like to bring my hands down in my namaste and send my blessings and my greetings to you that way. Feel that openness and that fullness with one another. Thank you. By this time, I hope that you've also opened your body, opened your mind, maybe just like let a little bit more oxygen and blood flow. And I want to tell you that when you're not in a state of stress or too much concern about your identity or too many things just taking your cognitive space, so hopefully you've opened up the creative spirit, that this is also allowing you to savor experiences. So for me, I savor communication. I've been listening to some of the beautiful ways that our friends and colleagues have articulated their work. And some lovely gems in the gems in the chat. And so I invite you to think now about listening to the communication or reflecting on messages that you've heard today, something that resonated with your heart, and go ahead and take a minute maybe to put in chat something that you have a communication moment you've savored, or listen in for language that's beautiful, for relational moments that happen through talk that are beautiful, and think about the ways that you might be able to just sort of linger on that kind of dazzling communication. Thank you. This has been your 7th inning stretch with Maggie Pitts, the first time I've ever done this publicly. So I hope that you enjoyed it and that your body feels a little better. Back to Julien.
Thank you so much, Maggie. This was pretty amazing. And, you know, Maggie does research on communication savoring. And so anytime you can take a moment to savor a moment of communication, I think we're moving in the right direction. So we really have a couple more sections of this conference. I hope you can stay with us. Next, we're going to focus on pedagogy. And then after that, we'll focus on practice. And then our final step will be to close the conference. But stay with us because we do have some nice things that we want to reveal there at the end of the conference. So let me, the focus of this session is called Positive Communication Pedagogy, Listening, Sharing, and Transforming. And it will be led by Kristen Christman from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, Tom Socha from Old Dominion University, and Jessica McCall, also from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And they're going to take approximately 35 minutes to share ideas about teaching and engage us in a really meaningful way. So I give them a big warm welcome, and the floor is yours, my friends.
Thank you, Julien. I know Tom is going to kick us off, but I will manage the slides if that's all right for our group.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Yep, absolutely. You can rock it. So you want to just give us an overview, or you want me to start?
Oh yeah, if you look, it's gotten away from me now. Yeah, thanks, Tom. Go right ahead.
Okay, well, everybody always asks, like, how do I teach this thing? And what do we do with it? How do we bring it in the classroom? And which classrooms do we bring it in? And so what Kristen and Jessica and I did some thinking about how to do that. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about some of the concepts and the ideas and some of the values that go into it, sort of an evolving model. And then Kristen and Jessica are going to talk more specifically about some of the approaches that you can use in your practice if you're counseling, or if you're doing training work, or if you're working in your classrooms, or wherever it is that you're working. So let's take a look at the evolving model. Right. We know that positive communication takes place in lots and lots of relationships. Right. And specifically here, we're focusing more on teachers and between teachers and students and trainers and employees, more as an instructional kind of activity. But this really could go on at home between parents and kids, between, and any kind of relationship where informal learning might take place. Right. Now, the context in which this takes place, and could be also anywhere, classrooms and organizations, would be the typical kind of structure for sort of instructional communication or communication education. It could happen pretty much anywhere. But these particular contexts and these particular relationships call forth particular communication kind of responsibilities. So what we're looking at in thinking about this idea of positive pedagogy, positive pedagogy actually applies to all disciplines, all educational structures, because it can be in psychology, it can be in sociology, it can be in criminal justice, it can be in English, it can be in mathematics. You can do it anywhere. But we're specifically here going to focus in our lane on the messages. Now, what drives this sort of train are values and value systems that we think about. Right. So the values in thinking about the choices that we're making, first we've got to think about, well, what are they? What do we value about the communication, right? What do we as a teacher or a trainer or an educator or a group leader or a facilitator, right? What are we valuing? Now, there's a couple of paths that we can take here. If we take the lower path, right, then the idea is we can think about our own communication, our own teaching, our own training, the kinds of messages and message behaviors that we bring into classroom situations, that we bring into training situations, that we bring into personnel situations, right? And that leads to positive communication skills as the content for that. So what I'm doing there is teaching and training and structuring about specific communication kinds of things, like, greeting, for example. In Julien's model, he's got greeting. Well, how do I greet? How do I greet to connect? How does that work? What does that look like, right, as we're doing that? So skills training is one thing. But some of you are involved with positive communication education, where what you're doing is designing a training program, a module for a course in and of itself, like we have at ODU, that specifically focuses on positive communication. Or you might be adapting existing courses and modules using positive communication. Again, this can happen in lots and lots of different contexts. Okay. So let's take a quick look at some of the values, right? For me personally, when I think about all of this, it begins with it all starts for me with mindfulness of positive communication values. And the question is, well, what is that? Well, the field of communication really hasn't thought much about its own values, right? We value all sorts of things, but what it is that we value about the communication itself that matters. And that's what gets us to this idea of becoming mindful of making positive communicative choices. So for example, and again, we'll put these as dialectical structures, right? Accuracy. We like our communication to be accurate, right? We like people to, especially in an instructional context, to be saying things that are accurate. We don't value the inaccurate. We value speeches and lessons and training structures that are clear versus muddy and kind of murky and unclear. We also want our instructional context to be confirming of who we are and what we are as human beings and what we bring to the table, rather than disconfirming. We also want our speakers to be engaging, or at least engaging enough not to put us to sleep. And when you take a look at pedagogy, presence, right? Immediacy, right? Immediacy of a teacher is such an important variable in creating impact, right? Being present for your students and the people that you're training. So that means, listening and thinking what's going on with them, and then, varying the activities. Of course, we want our communication to be ethical, right? To have an ethical parameter. Ethics, we sort of separate in communication. Vince Waldron has a book on communication and ethics and morality, where he talks about the good relationship as not being just, positive interaction, but it's also moral. We also treat each other well, care for each other. It's inclusive rather than exclusive. It brings us together rather than separating us, keeps us apart. Now, it's also listener and learner centered. In communication, we don't want necessarily, we want the speaker's ideas and things, the teachers and trainers to be included, their point of view is of course included, but to be effective, we want listeners to be, the learner has to be privileged. Of course, we want them to be kind rather than mean. Politeness, I think politeness is super important. Where are we in our cultures and mores and norms and how we treat other human beings with respect? I think sometimes we have this sort of a condition of chronic inhumanity to each other, right? Where we don't treat each other well. And I think societies have some of that problem. It's pro-social versus anti-social. So it's going to be supportive of the cultural norms and conditions and things that are around. And it's also, bottom line is, it's got to be empowering. I've got to give them tools to free themselves from structures like, hyper-commercialism and, overuse of whatever and non-sustainability kinds of things. So what we have to do is think about how we can use lessons to bring greater awareness to things going on around us. Okay, so what Kristen is going to do next is take us through a really, really important model that's been used and talked about and interacted.
All right, thanks, Tom. So we've talked about Julien's model sort of throughout the conference, but we wanted to really celebrate Julien and also bring forward this model that we know is grounded, theoretical, and really illustrates those behaviors that exemplify positive communication as a practice. And this model functions off of these behaviors. And so if you just take a second to review the model, and I appreciate when I was in a group in the very beginning, and I hate that I couldn't remember her name, but she pulled off of her computer screen that she had this model sort of taped under her computer screen. And someone else said, how do I get one of those? And so that's really how fundamental I think this model is when you think about positive communication and positive communication pedagogy. So not only learning about the model, but it's very practical and a clear guide for understanding how positive communication functions in human interaction. And so just to kind of review these, we've hit on some of these, but thinking about greeting, which creates contact, right? And you probably caught some of the conversation we were having in our mini breakout room, where we were talking about when you skip that, there's sort of this lack of authenticity or someone's comfort level into sort of, sharing. And so if you skip it, there's a fundamental thing that's missing, and we feel that. Then asking discovers the unknown, complimenting affects the development of self, disclosing deepens relationships, and encouraging gives support. Listening transcends human separateness, and inspiring influences others. And to me, as a teacher, this makes a lot of sense in terms of student success. All of these things really bring out the best. And so we want to showcase this model as really a clear guide for action when you're thinking about positive communication pedagogy. And this is sort of a developing, concept for us. We are exploring this, but his model really describes the nature of positive communication and how you can practice this in everyday life. And so it's very applicable to thinking about the classroom, and the classroom can be many different things. So when you saw our little tiny model at the bottom that we've just kind of, we're thinking through this in terms of positive pedagogy, we're thinking about how those values overlay and interplay with content that's being delivered, and then the ways in which the content is being delivered. So you've got values, content, and pedagogical practices. And so thinking about that, no matter where you are in your work, whether you're working for healthcare, whether you're working as an instructor or a coach, right? So you will have your own content that needs to be delivered, and how you plan to deliver that has to come into play when you're thinking about pedagogical practices. And so all of those things really take into account how can you utilize this model depending on who your audience is. But it applies to all of these things. And I think that's what we want you to understand, is that it's so transferable, no matter sort of where you live in your professional work. And when we move beyond this and sort of thinking about this model, we want your feedback on this and sort of thinking about how this creates positive pedagogy and positive communication pedagogy. We do have a few examples to share. And again, we are building off of this. And so when you think about some pedagogy examples, we've got places, right? So we've got degrees and courses that are focused on positive communication. And you've got, Julien at the University of Arkansas and Tom at ODU. And you've got these specific courses that focus on positive communication. And then we have some at UNCG as well. So a positive communication course, and then Pete Kellett, who's taught positive conflict negotiation and management as well. But beyond that, so those are intentional examples where positive communication is taught, is intentionally infused. And then there are times where I think we see this sort of positive framework come into place. So while we have courses that may not necessarily teach positive communication and looking at the model, we're using the model to sort of infuse the work. And so one of the examples that I have we are at UNCG, we're sending students this summer to Ireland, and we have a cross-listed course. So I have a colleague whose expertise is in kinesiology and health and wellness and physical activity. And so we decided to blend, right? So positive communication and health and wellness in Ireland, and looking at that. And so I appreciated the conversation earlier about maybe we could, looking at the model and how it's viewed in international contexts. So another example we have, and that sort of infuses this framework, is that we have a course called Communication and Community. And while positive communication is not in the learning objectives, it has found its way in my course, of course, you can imagine, but it's really combining service learning, community engagement, and positive communication. So again, seeing how it can fuse through all of these different areas of work. And one of the really cool examples, and I hope this kind of gets you excited about how you can see this translating into your own work, which we want to hear about in just a minute, is I had a student who is pictured here, Erica, and she was in my positive communication class and also taking my communication and community class. And the communication and community class is all about service learning and working in the community. So I found out there was a newspaper article, I think in the New York Times, that talked about painting positive messages in bathroom stalls in K through 12 schools. And I don't know about you, but where I live, there's a lot of Title I schools, right? And so it can be pretty dark and gray areas. And we saw this article, and she happens to be a double major in painting and communication studies. And it just was like a no-brainer. I was like, okay, we can create this project that we're celebrating your gifts, but you're also communicating positive communication messages and painting them in bathroom stalls in a school. It was actually a middle school. And so middle school girls' locker room. And we got to talk to those girls and ask them, what they wanted to see, and learned a lot. And so this is about her. I just wanted to showcase kind of, this is how all of these things sort of came together and demonstrate how she utilized positive communication in her experience. So I'm just going to play this quick video. Here we go. So we called it Painting the Town Positive, and it did sort of turn into this movement of sorts.
Hey, Kristen, did you?
Studying communications and painting at UNCG. So Paint the Town Positive is a project that started whenever I was in positive communications, and I also had community and communications with Professor Christman, and she had seen a post online that was talking about painting positive messages in bathrooms. We just thought that was a really neat idea. And she's like, we could do something like that here. And so the project evolved from that. It started out as painting bathroom stalls, and then it ended up being so much more. It became a research project, and I ended up painting a whole school. Well, that's the goal anyway. It's important for me to return to this project because students are coming back on Monday, and we want to have them return to the school and be energized and ready to learn. This project has affected me personally and professionally. It's helped me to see myself as a leader and to take on challenges even whenever it was hard to see an outcome. Being an artist is about problem solving, so I've just found a way to adapt my skills into our project.
All right, so I just love showing that because it was sort of a perfect storm of opportunities for this particular student and for us. So let me back out real quick and share one more time. One second.
Kristen, do you want me to share your last slide?
Do you mind? That'd be great. I know,
Yeah,
I'm like,
you guys do the talking. I'm going to share.
thank you,
your
Maggie.
slide.
Thanks. No, I just wanted to share that example. I think it's a really neat idea that maybe others could fold into their work. But we also, there is a link, and Julien will debut this in the very end, so I don't want to take away the excitement, but we on the website, the Positive Communication Network website, have established a place where there are activities that can be applied into all kinds of work. So while we're also focused in our, education work, you can easily overlay, the word student with participant or, things like that. And so we want you to know that any of this is transferable to whatever you do, but we also are interested in hearing from you and how you see this work. And as we build out not only the website, but also the model of positive communication pedagogy, what is going to be helpful for you and how can we generate some ideas and build and grow from this? So Jessica is going to lead us through that so we can capture some of your thinking.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kristen and Tom. We obviously wanted to stay true to the spirit of positive communication pedagogy, and we wanted to be able to listen to you. We wanted to be able to invite you and to engage you in this process. So we have 2 questions for you and would really appreciate it if you could just sort of open your chat for a second. And I'm first going to ask you to fill in the first blank. So it says positive communication pedagogy is. So if you could just take a second to drop a word in the chat that you think describes positive communication pedagogy. So positive communication pedagogy is blank. What is it? We're still wrestling with this ourselves. Oh, meaningful, proactive, incredible, empowering, useful, transformational. Thank you. Inspiring. These are fantastic. Accessible. Nice. Necessary. Uplifting. Valuable. And when I see these words, I actually am thinking back to the example that Kristen just shared because I happen to know that student personally. And what's so interesting about that example is that Kristen was able to identify in working with the student how she could help her become a leader. She said she felt like a leader. That student didn't really feel like a leader in many other areas in her life. And so that was just a really cool piece that really speaks to many of the ways that you're describing positive communication pedagogy there, right? So let's do it again, right? So positive communication pedagogy is beneficial in my context because. So in the chat, Why would you say that positive communication pedagogy is beneficial in your context? Ooh, I am human. I love it. Why is it beneficial in your mind breaking? Helps break down barriers. Fantastic. Thank you, April. Lots of people do not feel valued, validating, need more love, sense of belonging. Pro-social, affirms, validates. And we can definitely capture these. I think that would be helpful for us to kind of see how we're all thinking. These are fantastic. Thank you. Connection, supporting others, reliance, resilience, autism, disability, anti-bullying. Yes, yes, all of this and more. And so thank you, right? Thanks for thinking that through. I know that we're on a short timeline, so, and I know I can't feature all of the voices here. I wish I could. What we do want to do is we want to give you a chance to kind of talk about this a little bit. So we have developed sort of 2 key questions and then a prompt for you to think through. We'd love for you to think about the challenges. So first, do you foresee or have experiences with challenges in using positive communication practices? So we do want to be upfront, right? There are going to be some challenges and we need to find ways to work through those challenges. The second piece is really about opportunities. So have you used positive communication practices or pedagogies in your work, right? What have you used? What has worked well? And remember, go back to both what Tom talked about earlier in terms of the foundations, in terms of the values, then also what Kristen emphasized with the model, right? So it doesn't have to be that you're actually teaching a positive communication course, right? You are likely using positive communication on a daily basis and likely maybe even infiltrating that into your training or your process in interacting with individuals. So talk a little bit about the challenges and the opportunities. And the last piece here is really sort of a bigger picture question. So if you have time, we'd love for you to address this. As we all collectively develop a model of positive communication pedagogy, we would love to know what would be helpful, right? What will be helpful for you and how we can all support one another in really trying to integrate positive communication in your workspace, regardless of what that might be. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put people into some groups. There'll probably be about 5 people in your group, so not too many, but a good opportunity for you to chat. And I believe we'll have about maybe 6 or 7 minutes just to kind of chat through some challenges, opportunities, and then maybe where we need to go from here. And we'll bring everybody back together, do a quick debrief, and then we will hand it back over to Julien to take over our next session. So again, any questions for me? All right, here we go. Opening up the rooms, challenges, opportunities, and then what do you need to help you out?
You rock, Jessica.
Thank you, Tom, as do you. All right.
Jessica, I can just join any room. Are you staying?
You absolutely can. Yeah, I'm excited to see what people are going to say. Chantel, do you need to join a room?
Yes, I'm currently driving and so I'm on my phone. So if you could like just throw me in a room, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely, you got it. Jessica,
Thank
do
you
you
so
need to join
much.
a room?
Yeah, if you could just put me in one, that would be great.
Yep, can do.
Thank you.
Let's see. Loretto, do you need a room?
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you.
No problem. And Ruben, do you need a room?
Sure.
Sure. Thanks, Ruben. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you had some good conversations. I know they were brief, but I hope you at least had a few ideas. I'm actually going to drop a Google Doc into the chat. And it is a very simple Google Doc. It just says, how can we move forward and what can we include? So if you had ideas, thoughts in your session, I know, we had a few ideas about how people were using the model in their studies and what maybe they thought they were missing. Or, again, I'm seeing people saying teaching activities, lesson plans. What is it that we can do to really help you move forward with positive communication pedagogy, and then obviously within the bigger picture of positive communication. Thank you for sharing all of that. Yes, Kristen says, please share all of your ideas. We're really excited to take those, and of course, we'll distribute those very widely. Did anybody have any quick thoughts or insights they wanted to share from their sessions with others?
Yeah, one of the thoughts from our session was the idea of how, what kind of model is there for how to include positive communication in our teaching? So what models are there for our syllabi and for our materials?
Great question, Pamela. That's something we're still wrestling with, right? And how to take very basic models of developing activities. As Kristen mentioned, my background is in experiential education. So thinking about how we utilize experiential education and coming up with something similar, right? So that when we're using positive communication pedagogy in all walks of life, not just in teaching positive communication. Great question, Pamela. What other thoughts?
And then maybe one last comment, and then I'm going to have to.
Thank you so much, Julien. Appreciate that.
So let's open it up to one more comment or thought.
We were trying to figure out in our session how to organize all of this, how to collaborate together to put this into one place that'll be meaningful and useful for other people, whether they're teaching or doing research or practicing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Something that we've started to talk about. Thank you so much, James. I appreciate that. Okay, so with that, put down your ideas, and I'm going to hand it right back over to Julien. Thank you so much for engaging, and we'll look forward to talking more soon.
Let's give a big hand to Jessica, Tom, and of course, Kristen for their great presentation. It's always heartwarming. I was in a room with students, which is always really fun to get their reflection on what's happening. And we do want to answer these questions. So at the end of the conference today, I hope that I can at least lay, when I think about the future of what we will do, lay some ideas for how we might move forward together as a collective group, thinking about that. So we're going to take a bit, it's not quite a break, but we thought we would break it up with a student leading us through a fun little activity, an activity that you can incorporate into your teaching that we have written, and it will be available on the website as something simple that you can incorporate in your own life, but also in your approach to teaching. So I'm going to let the student take it over from here.
Okay, thanks, Julien. Yeah, so, one of the most significant things we can do in our personal or our professional relationships is to express gratitude. So the act of expressing gratitude is a positive self-disclosure that is authentic, personal, real, impactful. And sometimes we don't always express the gratitude that we feel for people, but the act of actually expressing gratitude is what really makes the difference for our relationships. So we wanted to guide you through a little exercise to express gratitude, and I'm going to actually hand it off to Sean to actually lead us through the activity.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. So today we would like to ask you all, as a part of this activity, to take just up to a minute here to reflect on and practice gratitude in your life. So first, we want you to reflect on a person in your life. It can be a friend, a family member, a colleague, or anyone that you feel grateful for. And once you have that individual in mind, maybe write down a few things that you can think of or that immediately stick out to you that you feel grateful for about them, and maybe some specific instances in your life or reasons as to why that is. So after you kind of have thought of those or written down a few things, take your phone out and write a simple text to the individual, and you can start the text with the following sentence. I'm thinking of you today, and I wanted you to know I am grateful for you because. So after that, put in those thoughts that you've kind of come up with and go ahead and hit send. And then that's all we have for the gratitude activity. And thank you all for having Amanda and I speak to you, and have a great rest of your conference. And I will turn it back over to Julien.
Yeah, I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to do that. Thank you so much, Sean. Just give people a little bit of space. So I'll put a timer on, maybe 1 minute or so, so we each have a time to do it. So the timer has gone off. I will share a quick story here. I've done this exercise when I do training and workshops, and I always tell this story. And I once did this. We have 300 people doing this exercise where people said how grateful they were. And so at the end, after the exercise, people raised their hands. One person in the room raised their hand and says, I got an answer, I got an answer. So 300 of us moved to this person to see and hear what they had to say. And she said, who the hell is this? And so I'm not saying, and we're not saying that this exercise will work, but we certainly hope that we're putting a hand out there and that you get a chance to connect. All right. So now that we've talked about teaching, and we've talked about learning, and we've talked about some exemplars of research that to us illustrates positive communication scholarship, we're going to focus here on positive communication in practice. We've called this a conversation cafe, and Maggie is going to lead us through the conversation because we wanted to end the final kind of big meat of the conference on a conversation with people who are doing real work in practice to make the place we work and live better. So Maggie, I'm turning out to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I am going to ask for one of my colleagues to add a spotlight to our very special guests and friends of mine, Amy Young and Jeanette Mare. So if one of our student facilitators could add a pen to them, and then everybody will watch us. This takes a little bit of imagination because we really just want to bring you into our cafe. And I think no matter where you are, it's definitely time for a coffee break. So hopefully just thinking about the aroma of coffee could be helpful there. I'm going to stop my my screen share so that I can launch into my my introduction to my colleagues here. Let me see. Do we have a pen? Do we have a pen on all three? Hang on. Let me get a pen. Add a spotlight. There we go. Now we've got all three of us at the coffee table. Excellent. So it is a total thrill to introduce you to our cafe conversationalists, both of whom I have the pleasure of knowing a little bit in certain domains, but I look forward to learning more about them and the work that they're doing. So grab your coffee and meet the co-founder of Positive Communication Network, Amy Young, and founder of Bell's nonprofit organization and doctoral candidate, Jeanette Mare. Let me tell you a little bit about these positive communication leaders. Dr. Amy Young is faculty director of Positive Organizations Consortium, Center for Positive Organizations at the University of Michigan. Her special talent is inspiring and helping to build foundations for human-centered positive work environments. Amy is the author of numerous peer-reviewed publications, really cool popular press articles. I recently joined LinkedIn and I follow Amy. Looks really cool. and co-author of the 2017 book, Think Banking and Corporate Webbing, 50 Secrets to Success in the Digital Age, which asks, but also answers questions about what it takes to lead through and survive in the digital revolution, and really how do we flourish in these contexts. We're currently in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Amy's working on a book that focuses on compassionate leadership, which is based on her extensive work with healthcare leaders in response to COVID. Amy's broad and applied work transcends questions of survival to provide practices for organizational flourishing, and organizations are really broadly defined. She does this by focusing on language, words, and gestures that leaders can use to improve employee and workplace well-being. She teaches and applies the science of human flourishing through her work with organizations, publications, and her daily living. By the way, she's been hiding out in Florida, soaking up the awesomeness there. So we know she practices this. So welcome, Amy. And we have also with us Jeanette Mare, who is a doctoral candidate in the Department of Communication, along with some of our other doctoral candidates here too. She's completing her dissertation on the implementation of a kind communication intervention at a large hospital here in Tucson. Jeanette is co-founder and former CEO of the beautiful nonprofit Ben's Bells, whose mission it is to teach individuals and communities about positive impacts of intentional kindness and to inspire people to practice kindness as a way of life. This includes free K through 12 kindness education programming. My kids go to a kindness school. They have a big Ben's Bells mosaic on their school and practice kind communication. Through these intentional acts of kindness, and also the creation and gifting of a Ben's Bells, which I've been holding on to mine as a lucky charm, and now who knows where I set it, but I'll find it and show it to you in a minute. Oh, it's right here. When you find one of these, it means that you've been, somebody's recognized the kindness in you, and they provide that gesture. And these are all hand painted and handmade by volunteers for Ben's Bells. She founded Ben's Bells to honor her son, Ben, and her own experience of grief and kindness following his sudden death. And now she's applying her learning and lived experiences to complete her doctoral degree with a focus on institutional kindness. So welcome also to Jeanette. So here comes the fun part of the conversational cafe. And so I'm opening up the first question to both Jeanette and to Amy. Can you give us a little bit of the background on the organizations and communities that you serve, and what was the journey that got you there?
You want to start, Jeanette?
Sure, I'll start. It's been a long journey. How long do you want me to talk? In my former life, my master's degree is in linguistics. So I've always been interested in language and communication, and especially cross-culturally. I used to teach sign language interpreting for people who were interpreting between hearing and deaf communities. And when I was teaching interpreting at the University of Arizona, my little son, Ben, died suddenly, unexpectedly. And that threw my life into just this tremendous grief experience that I didn't know what to do with. And fortunately for me and my family, we were surrounded by people who were willing to brave that discomfort and come in and offer my family and me kindness after kindness after kindness. And the kindness, it was so clearly not just niceness, and it wasn't warm and fluffy. It was real, it was authentic, it was raw, it was hard sometimes, it was messy. And I just started understanding kindness in a really different way. And so that's what this organization, Ben's Bells, is really about, is about shining a light on the need for human communication, human relationship, and how communication is that relationship. And then I became really fascinated by the difference between our kind intention and then the actual impact we have in the world. Because what I've learned over 20 years of doing kindness work is that really most people want to be kind, but there are things that happen between that intention and the actual doing of the behaviors. So that's what I'm really interested in studying. Really, what I'm interested in is how do we practice kindness? Like literally, what do we do? How do we do it? And so I think we have plenty of research that says kindness is good for us. Positive communication is good for us. We know the health and wellness benefits. And so now how are we going to do this better? And so I've worked with all types of organizations. I have a specific love for healthcare because of my experience in the hospital with my son, and other experiences in healthcare as well. And because healthcare it feels like sacred ground where we need to support our healthcare providers, the entire team that makes a hospital work, and in order to be able to nurture our patients and families the way we need to. I don't know if I answered the question. Your turn, Amy.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really exciting. I'm thinking, oh, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. So, but anyway, so my journey is a little bit different. So I started out as a psychologist, interested in social interactions and the impact that has on our well-being. And, was really interested in this idea of, positive psychology, flourishing. And I was really fortunate to be around this group of organizational scientists here at Ross who were looking at how do we actually create organizations like that. And it dawned on me, I could have such a bigger impact if I was working with organizations, helping build that whole social system that is enabling people to flourish. So that's when I started taking what I know as a psychologist, putting it into practice, into helping leaders when they engage with people, or to think about how their team, when their team interacts with each other, are they helping each other? Are they nourishing each other with the words they're using? So I was very much involved in that, and I became the faculty director of the Center for Positive Organizations Consortium, which is about 50 different companies who are interested in learning the science of organizational flourishing, bringing it to their organizations. And the part that I just love is really having the research-based practices, but helping to translate it, getting it into the world. That's the part that really excites me. And so, sometimes I'm just working with that group in larger sessions, showing them how to do it. I've also gotten more involved with particular members of the organizations who want to really bring the practices in. And I started working with Michigan Medicine Hospital. It's an academic medical center. And this started the beginning of, in 2019, we were just getting underway and boom, pandemic hits. And so that really helped me understand what a lot of organizations were going, just being at the center of epicenter of that. And that's what really got me thinking about the value of compassion, because there's so much suffering there as trying to cope with what was going on. There was so much suffering in the entire world, and I think we're still in that place. So there is such a need for, the positive communication to help us get through this.
Mm-hmm. I really love that, talking about that idea of compassion and how do we act that. I've been deepening my own studies in compassion and learning about that idea of coming together to relieve another's suffering and another's burden. Compassion is at the heart and in your heart of what you both do. Can you talk to us a little bit about what are some communication practices that organizations can do to cultivate compassion within an organization or maybe within our interpersonal relationships? How do we use communication to cultivate compassion in our lived spaces?
I'll let you start, Jeanette.
This is your doctoral defense, Jeanette.
Yeah, here we go. I think that what I see is that what we need to understand is the interaction is sort of the point. Like we can't get to know each other if we can't have good empathic accuracy, right? We can't understand each other if we don't interact with each other, right? I think it was Dr. Ahmed or somebody showed the Martin Luther King quote about we can't understand each other if we don't communicate with each other. And so if we really understand each other, then that can kick in our compassion, right? We care, we capital suffering, but then we still have to be able to do something with that feeling that comes from, that wanting to relieve somebody's suffering. And that is another step, right? And what happens when the system gets in the way of us being able to connect with people? What if the staffing is so short that people don't have time to talk to each other anymore? What if, when a nurse is handing off a patient to another nurse, they can't have the conversation that they need to have in order to, with compassion and kindness, hand over the care of this human being to the next person, because everything is like this. So there's a book that the bottom line of it is, and it's basically a systematic review. The bottom line is there's a compassion crisis in healthcare. Yeah, I don't think that's a nuanced enough conversation, because that makes it sound like you're blaming the humans for not having compassion. And I think we really have to look at what it takes to understand each other, to get to that feeling of compassion, to do the kindness that we know is important, and understand that compassion is not the only thing that motivates kindness. Kindness can be motivated by other directions too. So if you don't think somebody's suffering, you still should be doing kindness. So hopefully something else is motivating that kindness as well. So so I think the positive communication world here has a lot of opportunity in healthcare to really delve into some of these really hard questions. And we're getting at it. I mean, the medical field themselves is turning from burnout, calling it burnout, to moral injury, basically saying, no, it's not just us burning out on our jobs, it's us wanting to do our jobs with compassion and kindness and getting stopped every step of the way. And that hurts us as human beings. And so I think we have a lot to offer in that conversation about how we make things better there.
Yeah, Jeanette, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Half of my work, I would say, is helping leaders at a high level understand how the structure of healthcare is really crushing healthcare workers. Now, that's a whole different conversation besides the positive communication, but helping them make that connection. And that's one of the reasons why, I'd love to be able to do that empirical research to make those connections so that they can see it. What I found is that that's one level, and you're absolutely right. Unless we change that higher level, it's going to crush, or it is crushing our healthcare workers. When I go in and help people work through some of it, it does go back to some of the basic skills. So it has to be those two levels, dealing with the structure that's crushing them. But, I hate to say it. Once again, I'm going to bring up Julien's book. It's going back to those behaviors. One of the things I found is that those behaviors work, and teaching leaders how to say that in an organization setting where they feel they can be professional. That's the challenge that they often face. They feel like they won't get the respect if they're compassionate. And part of it is teaching, no, actually you get respect in a different way, and you're opening up and engaging with people in a much stronger way. You're not just winning over their minds, but their hearts when you have compassion. So to get back to specific questions, I always start with leaders. How are you greeting people when you walk in? It's the greeting. It opens up the opportunity. It tells people whether you're going to be open to an authentic conversation, whether your door is open, whether they can approach you. Asking, how are you doing? When leaders can find the time to ask, and you might have to ask again, right? But simply the act of asking, how are you doing, says, I actually care. I care to listen. And, listening and really giving space. Now, you're right. Part of the challenge there is they don't have the time for those very critical ways of being able to pay attention to the interactions. So it's multi-level.
Yeah, it's really compelling to think about all the places that we can start, actually. So the crush is really there, but I also think that means that we have so many places that we can start bolstering up, and positive communication is one of the tools that we can use. I'm going to turn to a question posed by Robert North in chat, and maybe direct this a little bit toward Amy. And thinking about organizations right now, we hear so much about organizational, quiet quitting, just not flourishing in the workplace, that there's job, just shifting and sort of a disengagement there. And Robert asked, how do you maintain positivity or flourishing in an organization when the business, layoffs, performance issues, all these things which seem to be really negative in that space, drive what's happening within that organization? Amy, what is your work telling us now about sort of post first phase of pandemic and our crisis that we're in? And workplace?
Well, many organizations are dealing with, there's a change in the industry. You have to be more agile. It's, a much more complex business environment, and adapting to that. And we need employees to really be at their best. But part of what, the great resignation and quiet quitting is about is people suffering. They cannot do it anymore. And many of the people I've been working with in the healthcare system, physically, they cannot do it anymore. Their heart is giving them problems. I mean, that's the level of suffering that's happened. So one of the things is to recognize what suffering looks like in the workplace. And it's not like we're open and we don't share this stuff. What it looks like is people showing up late, or taking days off, or not having energy anymore, or being late on getting work done, or just seeming like they're not there. Quiet quitting. Quiet quitting is suffering, and so I think if we can first recognize it and hold a space to have those conversations, that someone might be suffering. And if you could use some of the positive communication in that moment, to really help give support, just holding a space for someone to have a conversation about how they might be suffering, whether it's something outside of the workplace environment or something that's happening in the workplace environment. With you have half of the team being laid off. That creates suffering for those who are still there,
What you're saying strikes me in a way that, because I work with graduate students at the grad college at the University of Arizona, I don't think I've thought about it, in that way. I think grad students are suffering. I know
Yes.
But I got a certification in mental health first aid. So it's like CPR, but for mental health, like I can't provide counseling, but I can identify these kinds of indicators that you've just described to me in a workplace that would motivate my mental health first aid to start asking those questions. And going back to, wow, Julien, you have this amazing model, right? Go back to Julien's amazing model where we greet people so that we're connecting with them. And then we ask questions and they share a disclosure, and we're able to share that vulnerable space with one another, that we may be able to identify people in the workplace who need help beyond what we can give, and really connecting them with a person who can provide that well-being support that they need. But those change in behaviors, I think, are important to recognize and to ask the question and to be curious about each other.
And, Maggie, one thing real quickly, compassion is to suffer with. And I think that's so important, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're suffering alone. And you may not be able to fix the problem, but to at least feel like you're not alone. That is something that you can do. So to notice, and then to ask, and then to hold space to listen. I know, Jeanette, are you finding that too?
Yeah, I mean, I really think at least at this point in the world, I think, not just healthcare, and always, but we are at this acute point, definitely in healthcare, where I think positive communication and kind communication is really about communicating safety to each other. Yeah, it's about saying you're safe. And what's happened in healthcare is if we look at Maslow's hierarchy, right, we want folks in that be able to be in that belonging place and connecting with each other, but everyone has been sort of pushed down into safety, including our employees. So if obviously patients and families are in that mode because it's such a vulnerable place to be, but now our employees are as well. And so communicating, I'm following Julian's model, that greeting just, it says, I see you, you're safe with me. And then I want to know about you. You're safe with me, and it's like giving evidence. And I don't know if you all know the generalized unsafety theory of stress. Have you ever heard this? This rocked my world.
Yeah,
So
sounds good. I haven't, but it sounds good.
Most stress theories, right, are like, oh, here we are at baseline, which is generalized safety. And then some stimulus happens that makes us feel unsafe. And so we go up and then we come down. Well, generalized unsafety says, oh, no. We actually are we have this unconscious general unsafety. Yeah. And we need evidence of safety, which makes us come down from that. And so I think positive communication, kindness and stuff is about being aware that the humans are walking around feeling unsafe, even if we don't really completely know it, until we have evidence that we're safe. And so when somebody brings us in, when somebody suffers with us, when somebody laughs at our jokes, it says, I'm with you, I'm with you, I'm with you. And as a social species that has evolved to be together, that's the ultimate safety.
So, Jeanette, I'm going to rock your world by telling you there's something called the social engagement system, which is that we are neurologically connected, our eyes, our facial muscles, our auditory, that when we have a nice soft tone, when we have a warm smile, where we have warm eyes, we are actually, that's connected to the vagal nerve. Yeah. And that calms us down. Yeah. So we have the ability to actually help someone de-stress when we show up in the way that Julien has identified, So it's to me, that's a magical solution, that just showing up and smiling, you may be stressed, but if you can calm yourself down and give someone a warm smile and give them a moment, you're actually helping them out. To me, that's beautiful.
100%. Yeah, it is. It's amazing.
What a gift, right? Like, we can be so generous with our positive communication. There's some questions in the chat about, well, how do we use nonverbal communication? How do we use gestures to cultivate this? There's other conversation there, like, how do you, I think about the paint the town positive idea in bathroom stalls, like, wow, that's really impactful. What are the signs that you both have seen that show this is the kindest organization that's there? This is the kindest healthcare organization. I say this because Jeanette says, what would it look like? Mm-hmm. If students in a third grade class were asked the question, what if this was the kindest class ever? How would you know? What would you see? So with about 5 minutes left, what are the signs that you're walking into a place that is poised to flourish or already flourishing? Talk to us about those.
Go for it, Amy.
Okay, so I know the energy level, because I really think that on one end of the spectrum, when you're not doing well, you're depleted. The other end of the spectrum, there's this positive energy, and they call it relational energy. And there's been a lot of work in positive organizational scholarship with that. And one of the things I've noticed is that in the classroom, for example, when I teach positive communication, you feel the energy. And just like that, you walk in, you can feel it, because people aren't holding back. They feel uplifted from each other. And it's just truly beautiful. So I love when we get to the point of the semester where I've taught them all these skills. They feel comfortable. They're doing it. I just sit back and watch in a class activity. And it's like, this is amazing. This is amazing. I don't know. What do you think, Jeanette?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's people are looking at each other. People are sitting and facing each other and leaning in and laughing and talking and putting an arm around each other. They're crying together. I work in a hospital, and, we just had our mask mandate relieved just about 2 weeks ago. And I was hired during masking, and just everybody just walks by each other in the hallway. And now that the masks are off, people are starting to turn to each other and smile at each other and look at each other again. And it just feels, as a new employee there, I feel safer. I feel more welcome. Yeah. So it's really interaction. I mean, we need to interact with each other. And I think we get when out of practice with it, with COVID and technology and everything, where we actually feel like we don't want it because maybe scares us a little without us knowing it. So it's easier to take meetings online, and it's easier to not reach out, and it's easier when it's actually not super good for us to do that.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, such a great message too, right? Like kind communication, positive communication, we work at, and sometimes we do it wrong, and we have to apologize, and we have to try again. You know, like Jeanette said, sometimes it's messy, like the communication. I think about Phil, when Phil was showing us the conversation analysis of what a conversation looks like and how there's overlapping talk. And when you're in these high intensity settings and in high producing organizations and healthcare organizations, that talk can be messy, but it's also like snotty, you know, like if you're really giving hair to somebody, it can be pretty yucky. And there's some research on, you know, you're talking so much about these warm nonverbal gestures that allow for that human connection. I've been reading some work on really turning our bodies towards suffering. And so one of the things that we want to do, you know, is, and I think about my children, if I see somebody on the street that is suffering, I have a tendency to shield my children. And it's such a strong impulse. And through the reading and work that I've been doing, you know, I try still to recognize the humanity in the other and making those human interactions, even though I can't at that moment relieve all of their suffering, by treating a person as a person that is impactful. And I think in healthcare organizations and in hospice care and in care where people are living and dying and going through major transitions, and in high intensity workplaces, which I think we're all in, it is easy to turn away from our own suffering for the suffering of others. What if a simple move was to open up our bodies and just greet the humanity in the suffering of others? That might shift the way that we interact. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something, because something that you said reminded me of this, and I think a lot of people would benefit, because we're always thinking, how can I make a difference? And one of the things I picked up on, you know, I realized at some point that the way I walk into the classroom and the way I interact with students has a huge impact on how they engage with each other and their well-being. I don't always feel like being that happy person, but I do know when I leave my office, I have 5 minutes to get to the classroom, and I have the ability to change how I'm going to show up. And I think about being intentional. And I know if I smile, if I, you know, give them a warm gesture, if I think about how they might need me in that moment, I can change. And what I find is that it may feel inauthentic the first minute, but once I get it back from the students, we're off and running. And anyone can do that, but you have to choose. It's a choice. You have to be intentional.
Yeah. Amy, that's such a beautiful message. I think for me, I do it when I drive home to be with my young kids. And I think about, I have a very long commute, which I don't love. It gives me 45 minutes to transition into being the best mom ever. I mean, I don't actually get there all the time, but I have to really file away very difficult work days and think, when I come home, my kids have a tiny bit of time with me, and I want to show up. And whatever day they're having, I need to be able to meet and help them, you know, sort through. And so I think about doorknobs a lot. Like, maybe I said sleeping would be my superpower if I could do it, but maybe just like doorknob, when you touch a doorknob, every time you touch a doorknob, if you thought about, am I my best self? Am I offering my best self right now? That might be a transformational practice for you, but also one that transforms the types of interactions that you get. Thank you both so much. I know I want to sit in our conversation cafe all day. These are two leaders in communities who make real differences in the lives of people. So Jeanette and Amy, thank you so much for the work that you do and continue to do, and showing up as your best selves in all of these different moments. Really appreciate it. So big round of applause for you both. Please do reach out to Jeanette and Amy to ask questions. There's a lot of good conversation going on in the chat, a lot of inspired discussion there. And I am going to turn it back over to Julien.
Thank you so much, Maggie. What a great conversation with Janet and Amy. So moving in many ways, and really a great reminder of the capacity for positive communication for making a difference. So really now we're getting close to the end of our time together. So I'm going to offer some remarks to close us, and then Maggie and a few of us will lead you through a final kind of call of action. So stay with us all the way until the end. I've got something exciting to share with you. But before we get to these revelations, let me offer some remarks about the future. So in one of the talks that I gave earlier on personal transformation, I mentioned that I've been doing some work with Heifer International. And that story has been on my mind in thinking about the positive communication network, right? It's a story about realizing that if you try to break a wooden stick, Girja told us in India, it will break easily. And if you try to break 2 sticks, it'll need more effort, but you'll still be able to break it. And if you try to break 10 sticks, however, you won't be able to break it at all unless you separate them. And this is how a team works. If a team is united, then no one can break it. And it turns out that that's the way I'm hoping we can think about the positive communication network. If there's just one of us doing positive communication work, well, the idea is most likely going to just go into a vacuum. But if there's lots of us, sticks together, neatly bounded, then I think we can accomplish great things. So I want to take a moment to reflect about what we might do in that future. I think if you're here today, you're here because you care about making the world a better place, whether that's as a scholar, as a teacher, or as a practitioner. You share the belief probably that communicating more positively, more ethically, more genuinely can improve us as people, can help transform our world at both our personal and professional relationships, and hopefully can help to co-create better and more peaceful social worlds. I know that the mission of my home department here at the University of Arkansas in Little Rock is that we will co-construct better social world through positive communication. So my colleagues and I fundamentally believe in this idea. But I think that caring and believing in an idea is wonderful, and having a sense of mission is too. But at the end of the day, we kind of have to do what Janet was saying. We may have an intention, but to be kind, you still kind of have to do something. And so to me, the positive communication network is about taking this idea of intentionality and trying to see if we can walk the talk. Because I believe that for it to be successful, we have to organize collectively. We have to support one another towards even more aspiring research, more meaningful work, more groundbreaking contributions. And I hope that maybe I can give some nuggets of thoughts at the end of this conference about how we might do it. My thesis is this: we cannot accomplish big impact on our own. And that's what my work with Heifer has been just reminding me every time I meet people, whether it's in Uganda or Bihar. I realize that all alone, they cannot do anything. But when they work in a group and when they have a support system, they can accomplish great things. So we need a collaborative force. And I think from the perspective of me and the co-founders, the Positive Communication Network is that place. So I want to reflect with you on 3 things that I think we need to do. One is we need to kind of agree on and think about what positive communication scholarship is. Many of us here are scholars and researchers, and so we need to have a common way of thinking and defining what that is. So I'm going to start there. Then I want to talk a little bit about the importance of having a common shared vision about what we're going to do in the future. And I'm going to then end with some concrete actions and at least ideas about what we will do. So let's start with number 1. What is positive communication scholarship? You've seen a lot of definitions and terms, but at the basic of us, when we think about it, positive communication is communication that enhances our health, enhances our well-being, enhances our happiness. It's communication that helps us create more meaningful and ultimately more authentic relationships. It's communication that encourages each of us to be more mindful in how we approach with one another, and more mindful and compassionate. And we just had this wonderful conversation cafe about the importance of compassion, but doing it in our everyday lives. It's about learning to lead and contribute to resilient, flourishing organizations and communities, and then ultimately creating better social worlds in that process that will cultivate both our individual values, but hopefully also collective virtues. In our work, one of the things that the Positive Communication Network that we did as a group is we outlined our definition about what positive communication scholarship would be. So I want to outline those features for you. What is the commonality that we're hoping for? One, we think that positive communication scholarship is the rigorous scientific inquiry into the nature of communication excellence. We want to know, and we're interested in, what human flourishing looks like through communication practices. We want to see and learn more about what people do when they communicate at their best. So that's one feature. The second feature is, as scholarship, it focuses on both process and outcomes, and it's designed to generate new knowledge. So if we're going to do scholarship, we have to contribute to something beyond the individual study. We have to enter into this conversation. Those processes might include things like any act, any sequences, any episodes. That might include positive practices such as active listening, supportive communication, or even dialogic communication. We have such a rich history in the field for thinking and talking about that. But I think what positive communication scholarship does is brings that to the forefront. Third, this is really important. For us, positive communication scholarship takes an affirmative stance. This is a direct quotation from Kim Cameron, who was one of the co-founders of Positive Organizational Scholarship. And he says, the focus really is on strength, capabilities, and an affirming human potential. So when we think about positive communication scholarship, what we're interested in is really taking this affirmative stance in the very research that we do. And then finally, we hope that we can cultivate a little bit of the communication practices that exist here in our society. I was lucky. I studied at CU Boulder, and I studied with Robert Craig, who really was influential in the field of communication. In 1989, he wrote an article that became really popular called Communication as a Practical Discipline. And the essence of his argument really was that communication as a field should think of itself as the space, as a practical discipline. Like, our goal is to help people communicate better. This is a quote from one of his most recent articles. He says, a practical discipline cultivates critical, creative, and well-informed deliberation on normative, but also technical aspects of practical conduct. It cultivates, it uses the Greek word phronesis, practical wisdom, as well as techne, the predictive skills that we need on a culture's communication practice. In other words, he says, to cultivate social practice means to improve it. So when we think about positive communication scholarship, we want to join that meta-theoretical stance. We want to join this idea that we don't want to just talk about communication, we want to improve it as a practice. So that was my whole first point. My second point is I really believe that we need a shared vision and a collective commitment and a sense of purpose. I was reminded of this on the trip back from Honduras. I was reading the book Transcend by Barry Kaufman, which is really a renewed understanding of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And he unpacks all of the development from Abraham Maslow's work. But again, as I was reading the book, I was reminded that humanistic psychology did not survive just with Maslow. It survived because other people joined in that endeavor. Maslow, Carl Rogers, Erich Fromm. There's a number of scholars and thinkers who really joined the focus. So I think we need to do something like that. We need to think about positive communication and try to keep our focus on the potentiality, the light of communication. We need to ask better questions like, what do great parents do when they communicate with their children? What do the best teachers do when they enter the classroom or work with students outside of it? How do the most inspiring leaders manage difficult moments or crisis? We've just been talking about healthcare. What do the best physicians do? What do the best supervisors do? How do nurses overcome through resiliency some of these challenges? What communication behaviors exemplify our capacity? Yes, we sometimes have the intention of being kind and we sometimes don't do it, but sometimes we do. So we need to study these moments and learn more about them. What type of communication will be transformative in our personal and professional lives, in our community, in our cultures? I'll stop here. You probably don't need any more questions, but I do think that for this movement, for this network to make sense, we have to know what it's trying to contribute to together. And then more practically, we have to really reflect about our teaching practices and do it collectively. And I think we need to join each other on collaborative research endeavors. We need to get to bigger data. And the more we can do that, I think the more we can find that common focus, right? So let me give you some things about what we can do very practically and what we're going to do. I mean, we're already moving in that direction. The first thing is we are building a virtual space where at least positive communication network will begin to appear. It's being shared here. Somebody's going to put it. I'm going to put it on the, maybe click on the link. You can visit it today. I do want to warn you that, thank you, it is not perfect. It's just a start. But on that website, you will find several things that I think might be helpful to you. One of them is a declaration that we want to build a community. Another is if you click on, if the student can click on the positive communication research tag, you'll notice right away that on the left side, we offer a brief history of positive communication research. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll notice that we attach the features that I've just described, but we also started a bibliography. So when you click on the word bibliography, it will take you to just a starting place. And we hope to kind of keep it going, how you might start thinking about positive psychology and positive communication you can share with your students. Another thing, if you go back to the main page, is we did include an article from Socha and Beck, which he introduced early on. On the right side are some of the major research projects that some of us are doing, and we hope we can join in some endeavors where maybe we do something collectively as a group. If you click on the next tab, which is positive communication pedagogy, you will find some easy, accessible activities that you can incorporate in your classroom right now. So if you click on the 1-minute gratitude experiment, which we did, then that will take you to a Google Doc. And then in that Google Doc will be a description of the activity and how you can embody it. We chose some, but I certainly hope that in the future, we'll have many, many more examples of what you can do. So practically, join our network. And if you click on Pause, Come and Practice, we do have some videos there that you can share. Some videos, we have TED Talks. We also have Dr. Pitts on savoring communication, Dr. Glenn on understanding positive communication, and the little video you watched from Kristen about the positive classroom project. What else is coming up? Dr. Ryan Fuller and I are hosting a special issue focused strictly on positive communication research for the International Journal of Business Communication. Those publications are coming in March 31st, and we hope that the special issue will be out at the end of 2023, early 2024. There were some conversations today about pedagogy, and so we are currently working on a special issue for the Business and Professional Communication Quarterly Journal so that we can invite people to share lots of ways of reflecting about positive communication pedagogy. But another idea that we're also brainstorming, if you're interested, is an edited volume that would combine lots of positive communication exercises and strategies that we'll work on with publishers. Dr. Tom Socha, very practically, is working on a new book series that will focus strictly on positive communication. It's called Positive Communication, Renaissance and Transformation. That's kind of in the works. I'm pleased to report that this is a shameless plug, but Alex Lyon and I, my colleague and I, just finished our new book called Positive Communication for Leaders, and that's available now for pre-order on Amazon. You can check it out by Roman and Littlefield. But there's also other exciting things like Tom Socha has a new proposal doctorate program in communication media with the first of its kind positive communication concentration. We're brainstorming new edited volumes. I would like to imagine that we could work together on a research project across universities so we can collect bigger data to make a bigger impact. And of course, we hope you will join us in our 2024 conference to continue the magic of what we're trying to do. So let me conclude. What I wanted to do in this short presentation is really just invite you to join our movement, to join our community. You know, I really look always back at my years as an undergraduate student. I was very lucky. I had an unbelievable mentor, and one of them was Marv Jensen, to whom I really dedicated my first book. To me, it was like meeting Yoda, and I'm still in touch with him, even though this is 23 years ago now. But one day he came on the board and he wrote down a list of the things that a communication professional should do. And on that list, he wrote, a communication professional should exemplify that the spoken word, spoken honorably and well, can make a difference that no other form of communication can equal. And I really still believe in that statement today, because I think that we can use the power of positive communication to build better relationships in every sphere of our lives, whether that's at home, at work, or across our society and cultures. But I look at it differently today. If we're only doing this alone, individually in our own silos, then it will not work. Our efforts will echo the work of Girja from Bihar, India, who says the sticks will break easily. But if we work together and become truly united with a common effort and purpose, then I think we can quote her again and say, no one can break us. So I hope you've enjoyed the Positive Communication Network conference, and we will have a post-conference survey, and I hope you'll fill it out so we can make it even better for 2024. But please join us as we celebrate the end with Maggie, who's going to take us through a call to action.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask for a student or somebody to pull if you have a phone, you can use the QR code, or somebody can drop that link to our forum to provide feedback. We really want to hear from you, but we do have a final, maybe two final calls to action. So if you wait just a moment on doing your survey, I want to talk to you about the United Nations International Day of Happiness. So you might already know some of this background, but when we were looking for a perfect
Amy,
day.
sorry to interrupt. We can see your document. Did you want to share that, or did you want to? We can see the.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing it, but no, you can't see the slide. Have you been seeing slides the whole time? I hope so.
So we can see this in a small version.
Oh.
We can see your whole screen, and then the United Nations International Day of Happiness, as if we had access to your computer.
Maybe just maximize that window.
Yeah.
Or stop share and then reshare. Did you get Maggie? Are you frozen?
I think she froze.
Yeah, there she is. She froze.
Who kicked
That's
me
her
out?
job.
Who kicked me out of the Zoom room?
There she is.
Well, we almost got through the whole thing without any too many problems. Shall I start? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so I'll just keep going, and if you can't, then Julien will have to take over. I'll keep it really short now. Join us in celebration of the United Nations International Day of Happiness. So if you don't know the history, I'm going to talk you through that just super briefly. It began in 2013, but as a result of a UN resolution that was approved on June 28th, 2012. So when we were looking for the perfect date for this conference, we thought St. Patrick's Day is a wonderful day for celebrations, and this is going to kick us off into the UN World Happiness Day, which is on the 20th of March every year. This resolution by the United Nations was developed to recognize that the pursuit of happiness is a fundamental human goal, that happiness is a right for all people, and happiness is necessary for human flourishing. Specifically, the UN resolution recognizes the relevance of happiness and well-being as universal goals and aspirations in the lives of human beings around the world, and the importance of their recognition in public policy objectives, and also recognizes the need for more inclusive, equitable, and balanced approach to economic growth, to sustainable development, and to poverty eradication, and for happiness and well-being for all people. So we celebrate International Day of Happiness in just 3 days on March 20th, 2023. On that same day, the United Nations will release their 11th annual edition of the World Happiness Report to inform the world what is the state of global happiness. The International Day of Happiness and broader inclusion of happiness in the UN mission is also a critical component of their 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which covers everything from water, land, water, poverty, education, health and well-being. And happiness is at the center for all of those. Happiness and the pursuit of happiness is for all people, for all ages, and all places that we inhabit. So we ask you, and I ask my colleagues who have been who are co-founders of the Positive Communication Network, and my colleagues here, how will you celebrate and contribute to International Happiness Day? We are committed to finding a meaningful way to use our communication, our time, and our talent to increase happiness. I know for me, I have committed to volunteering with my family at Ben's Bells to make some of these beautiful bells in honor of Jeanette's son and the happiness that she's brought to the community through her own lived experience. And I've already signed up to be part of the World Happiness Report, a kickoff launch next Monday. So those are my commitments for now, as well as remembering to keep an open communication posture to recognize the humanity in others. So I know that Tom Socha has a commitment and something that he's interested in too. Maybe I'll kick it over to Tom and just invite a fun free-for-all for our co-founders to say how they're going to commit to World Happiness Day. Oh, thanks, Kristen, for putting up the slide.
I wonder if Tom is ready.
Yeah, it's still on Spotlight. There we go. Okay, cool. Basically just two charities that I like to give to. The World Central Kitchen is a charity that I give regularly to. It's the charity that goes in and tries to provide people in disaster areas with food. Mostly I'm thinking about Turkey here, Syria, the earthquake folks. I think about those kids every single day, and I think, boy, they need a meal. World Central Kitchen is a great place to give, and I give to them regularly. And then UNICEF, right? The United Nations Children Emergency Fund is another place that is worthwhile, I think, to support. I always go food first because that's my orientation, but that's how I'll do World Happiness Day, is make another donation to the World Kitchen and to UNICEF.
I'll follow you up, Tom. I will contribute to International Day of Happiness by giving to Heifer International. I'm going to try to give some chickens to people in Honduras, since I came back from there and I haven't seen on the ground the work that Heifer is doing. And then I'm also going to take my whole family for ice cream, because that's always a winner.
That is a great idea.
So March the 20th is the birthday for my twin girls that will be 6. So their birthday is actually on International Day of Happiness, which is very fitting for these extroverted twins. So, so I will spend my time a little bit with them, but also actually a huge UNC Greensboro campaign is going on right now. And I actually did give to them because of a scholarship program that was created, and I actually got to help be a part of it. And it was really a transformational experience for me because it supports students who are 100% of poverty, but also very high achieving students to have the opportunity to get a 4-year education. And so that's how I'm contributing.
Beautiful, thank you.
We're contributing by supporting Wide Horizons for Children. I put the name in chat if you're curious. They support orphanages, adoptions, family security, and job training for children on at least 3 continents. We have a particular connection with it because one of their countries is Moldova, and my wife and family who live near us here are from Moldova. But they do great work. We know folks, and so we're confident the money is put to good use there. But best wishes to all.
I plan to contribute to Impact Foundry here in Sacramento, which is a management and technical assistance organization that helps nonprofit organizations in the Sacramento region. Next week is spring break for Sac State, and so Monday nights usually I would spend teaching my negotiation and relationship management class, but I am happy to be spending that evening time with my children next Monday.
Wonderful. Okay. Are we ready to move toward our closing? Amy, I didn't know if you wanted.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can add. So my plan is for Mott's Hospital for Children. So this is the group that I work with, Michigan Medicine, and this is specifically for the Children's Hospital. So going to be doing that, and also obviously something fun with the family. It won't be ice cream because we can't eat ice cream, but we'll find our own way of celebrating.
That sounds good. I think ice cream and celebrations, alternative celebrations are important. Julien, do you want to get in a last word before we move to our closing with an Irish blessing?
No, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Come and join us with Maggie's reading of the Irish blessing to close this conference. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. So we wanted a special way to celebrate this special day. And it's a song that we sing in my choir, but I won't sing it for you. It's a traditional Irish blessing with a tiny twist at the end, but given to you as a gift. Truly, thank you so much for being here. And this is the blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, and I hope we all meet again, may you be held in the palm of a loving and compassionate hand. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining this conference.